Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call a regular meeting of the Wallingford Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission to order. The date is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, and the time is 7 p.m. Please join me in pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we are in a strange time with the virus, with all new protocol and restrictions. As we see, we all have masks on. But it has come down from the town health director. The following protocol will be used for in-person meeting, and that's what we have here tonight. All attendees, board members, and public shall wear a mask. Removal of the mask to speak should be discouraged and only permitted if the speaker is at least 6 feet away from any other person. Where possible, maintain 6 feet of social distancing. Board members should consider changing the seating arrangement to provide distancing. Although this is recommended, please keep in mind that by wearing masks, the 6 feet distance is not mandatory. If you change the seating arrangement, make sure the members speak into the microphone. They do not need to be on camera. They, however, must be part of the recording. Touchless hand sanitizer devices are located throughout the building for public use. The attendees should be reminded of the mask requirement. It is also advisable to recommend to individuals to spread out from other attendees. If possible, attendees residing within the same household are not required to provide social distancing. FYI, the ventilation system has been maximized to increase circulation of outdoor air in the town hall. As of March 18, 2020, there are now increased cleanings throughout the building focusing on high-touch surfaces. The health department is continually monitoring the pandemic as it relates to the community and county case levels. You will be advised of any changes to the guidance provided herein. If an attendee refuses to follow these rules, advise them to leave the meeting. If they refuse, contact the police department. Chairperson should consult with staff regarding the upcoming agenda and expect turnout by the public. While no one can know for sure how many people will attend, you should have a general idea. If there are concerns that a large number of people may attend, staff should look moving into a larger location. This should be addressed prior to posting the meetings. Generally, the town council chambers have been more than adequate to accommodate the public. So I think we're all aware of the masking requirements, and hopefully we can follow through on them. Okay, go from here, go for a roll call. Allie?
Eileen McKean.
Nick Kern.
Jim Vitale.
Deborah Phillips.
Robert Simon.
Jennifer Passeretti.
Erin O'Hare, Environmental Planner.
Okay, moving on to consideration of the minutes. The first minutes that we're discussing is July 15th. It's a regular meeting minutes. It was virtual on the air. So if there's any comments regarding the minutes, any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the minutes from the regular meeting of July 15th, 2020 be accepted as submitted.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Allie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jennifer? Yes. Now the second meeting is a special meeting. It was held in person on the site at 6th Street Grebe Trail on July 21st, 2020. Here again, if any corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting on July 21st, 2020 and that they be accepted as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Call for a vote. Ally,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and I abstain. Was not there. Okay, now going on to old business. Application A 18-1.2, 801 North Colony Road, 6 Beaumont Road, Pattons Brook, NERP Holding. Are they ready for a bond release hearing?
No, they're not ready. They got a lot of work to do.
Okay, moving on. A 6.6, 6 Grebe Trail, Tyler Sweeney. This is in regards to a patio and some filling. Where do we stand?
I really didn't expect Mr. Sweeney tonight. He works long hours out of town, and so I could go over the environmental planners report if you'd like.
Please.
Okay, if just to summarize, just to recap, this was originally a violation because a neighbor reported someone had dumped fill in the swamp. Turned out it was Mr. Sweeney, and turned out the fill came out of his patio. He was busy making himself a patio, so I informed him he needed a permit for the patio, and he got a notice of violation for this rather large pile of fill in the swamp. Anyway, so then we've been back and forth on this, and there was a special meeting. He had taken out a little bit of fill off the top. He did put in his silt fence and his straw mulch. And then he requested a special meeting of the Wetland Commission out there to take a look-see, because he didn't really, it was difficult to remove it because it's so steep. So the commission decided when they were out there on the 21st, in the minutes that were just approved, reflects what happened. Basically, they just told him to take a little more off around 2 trees, the trunks of 2 trees, so that the trees could not be smothered, their root zones would not be smothered. And they directed him to plant conservation mix. So he said he took some more off. I went out there. It's still not enough. And whereupon he said that he was done. He feels that he has no idea how much is enough, and it's just ridiculous for me to go out, he said, and keep on doing this. So I have no problem going out and taking off what needs to be taken off, because I do understand tree roots. And also, as I said in the report, we found out it's town property. So I'm a town employee, and I think it's fine that I can do that on town property if the commission doesn't mind.
So you're approving this application as submitted?
Well, I neglected to mention the patio. I have no issue with the patio portion of the matter. He's got an application for the patio, after the fact application.
So
That's fine.
That's what we're dealing with. Now, you did request to find out who owned the perimeter or the one edge of the property line, and it was the town of Wallingford.
Yes.
And I think it was Nick that recommended ballards to be put so people don't go onto it. Is that correct?
It might have been Eiley, I don't remember, but.
it was Nick.
Oh, okay. So we have to make sure before we go put bollards anywhere that it's town property, and we did verify that that's town property where Nick had pointed to is definitely town property. But
So
it turns out it goes on, it continues on, so.
So you requested the town to put ballards there?
No, I haven't done that yet, but if the commission wants to pursue it, we can do
That's
that.
what the commission feels, the ones that were there? Some kind of block, yes, Ellen?
So there's not just the embankment where he had put the fill, but there is a path that goes into the woods along the lake that is apparently on town property that creates a potential for anybody to drive back there and dump whatever. It's probably used to hike around the trail, but I believe that bollards would help keep cars or small vehicles.
All right, then I think the commission is in favor of requesting the town to put some kind of ballard system there to reduce vehicle traffic. Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to the significant activity of the motion of the patio.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that Application A 20-6.6, 6 Grebe Trail, Tyler Sweeney patio, be declared not a significant activity.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Robert?
Abstain.
Yes. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application A 20-6.6, 6 Grebe Trail, Tyler Sweeney patio, be approved as submitted.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Robert?
Abstain.
Yes. Okay, moving on to application 826.7, 17 Fritz Place. Yes, sir.
Chairman Vitale, thank you for this opportunity to address the board. Frank Ritchie, 46 Chimney Sweep Road, Wallingford, Connecticut. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Nancy Ritchie, from 17 Fritz Place. First, I'd like to commend the board. I've been watching some of these to kind of figure out what the process is, and I thank you for your patience and your dedication to the town. I'm not going to read every page of this, but I will hit the highlights to ensure that you know what we're talking about here. So we went before for a variance for planning and zoning, and the variance for planning and zoning was approved unanimously. The neighborhood predates the current zoning regulations. It was the only house on the street that essentially doesn't have an attached garage or a garage closely to it. And the safety of our seniors. I think everybody's goal in the town of Wallingford is to keep our seniors living comfortably in the home. The home is the residence of my mother and my aunt since my father passed away, James Ritchie, about a year and a half ago. If you look at a history of the watercourse area on page 2, you will see, if you look at the bottom at Route 68, there's been 3 developments. There's a cul-de-sac at the top, and then you have Bertini Lane and Preston Drive. My mother and our entire family is pro-development, we're pro-jobs, and we're pro-Wallingford. So this panel did a great job ensuring that there's engineered flood control. But the fact is, in this big floodplain with 3 significant developments, it has added a little bit over the year when you have a real significant rain to go down by my mother's house. My mother's house on this watershed area is located, there's a dash mark on the side, and you can see on Fritz Place right next to the stream. I put the stream in yellow just for ease of understanding. If you look on page 3, you will see that the banks on my mother's house are well established. These are forsythia bushes. The great philosopher Google told me that forsythia bushes have a dense root system with a taproot to help stabilize soil, and it's actually one of the recommended plants if you're going to stabilize a bank. The signs of erosion on the property on Aaron's map, where the garage is proposed to go, the bank on my mother's side is very stable, but further down where the shed is located is where most of the erosion is occurring because the brook turns. If this construction project is approved, we'll have the equipment. We're willing to demolish the shed and improve the erosion control in that area. Erin educated me when she took me on a walk through the property that essentially because of the shed is so close to the creek, there's no light filtering through there, so we'll be able to plant some forsythias or whatever the board recommends to help stabilize that bank. If you look on page 5, you will see I am actually standing perpendicular to where the outer wall of the garage would be, so you could see both sides of the bank, and there's plenty of vegetation on both sides. This is a water course. The water isn't running in it at all times. Generally, the only time you have water in it is after it rains and a couple days after it rains. because it's taking the groundwater and that overflow from Upper Grove Street. On page 6, you will see that part of the house, and you could actually move this line. I had a PowerPoint presentation prepared, but then I was told yesterday that PowerPoint wasn't allowed, so I kind of had to switch to this format. So a good portion of the house, essentially 3/4 of the living room, is actually within the 50-foot range of the brook. The proposed garage is 24 feet wide, and you will see that and there's a typo here, it's 156 square feet of stone surface. The rest of it is the actual driveway. So everywhere we're talking about building has already been previously disturbed soil. There would be no virgin soil touched during excavation. One of the other major reasons why we want the garage the size it is because under the American with Disabilities Act, if we have to put a ramp to keep my mother and my aunt in the home, it requires an 8% grade, and so we'd have to run the ramp down to 2 landings with a switchback, and then you'd still be able to put a car in the home. That side of the house is on the north side of the house, and while my father, Jim, did a great job and was meticulous keeping it clear, we rely on the grandkids and my brothers to come down and shovel the driveway, but we don't do as good a job as Dad, so this will take away the icing from that side. If you look on page 8, you will see right now, when it rains, the sheet flow goes right across the driveway. It captures essentially the entire driveway, and it flows over that rock surface, but because of the velocity, it also goes down the bank into that water course, which it could distribute pollutants and just the speed of the water. The garage would cover a total of 624 square feet, and that will capture that water, limiting that sheet flow and actually slowing it down from entering the stormwater system at such a high rate of speed. One thing that was erroneous in Erin's report is she talked about the gutters on the new garage. Our plan is not only to take the gutter, the rainwater from the front, and capture it and move the water to the back over a splash pad and let it disperse slowly into the backyard. We also plan on capturing an additional 240 square feet of the roof, because the roof is split in half. You have 1 liter on one side, 1 liter on the other. So we'll capture the water on the roof of the garage and half of the roof water on the roof of the house, and move that water to the back of the house, which will then again reduce the sheet flow and the velocity of water. As you can see at the bottom of the arrow, that drainage pipe enters the very driveway itself, so all that water from the roof right now is actually increasing that sheet flow. We're not opposed to installing a dry well if this board feels that the splash pad wouldn't be enough, that they would want that to go into a dry pad. We're willing to accommodate for the safety of my mother, whatever this board thinks. The water course is exactly 20 feet from where the water starts to the side of the garage to that previously disturbed rock area. And I'm 46 years old, and I can never remember that not being there. So for at least 40 years or so, that parking area has been there. If you go to page 11, you will see that the neighbor's house directly opposite of the water course is only, the driveway is only 5 feet from the edge of the creek. And if you go to page 12, I took a tape measure, and you'll see the tape measure is at 25 feet. That's fully extended from the side of the driveway where the water course begins to where the 25 feet is. So my neighbor's house, who hasn't objected to this application, their entire house is within 50 feet of the watershed. The disturbance, okay, on page 13, the disturbance of the upland review construction is only 624 square feet. If we add 5 feet all the way around, Mr. Kern, for excavation, we're looking at 0.02 acres. This isn't a significant amount of disturbance, and we believe that with proper mitigation techniques, it's actually going to improve the erosion issue in the creek, especially with removing that shed. Right now, the cars are parking on rocks. It'll be parking on concrete, so that also limits vibration, and it also distributes the pressure of the cars instead of that pressure getting transferred directly to the creek bank. We're willing to put down 4 inches of straw mulch across the area where there's no plants, a sill fence trenched in 6 inches along the bank as erosion control. Based off this board or Aaron's recommendation, if you want hail bales at the bottom of that water course, we're willing to do that as well. When going through this application process, I started to take a look at similar situated homes within a 3-mile radius of my mother's house. And ironically, I couldn't find a water course within 3 miles where there wasn't some encroachment because of just the age of development on this side of town. So if you go right up to Grove Street, which is at the top of my mother's street, which is the same water course, you will see why these pictures aren't fantastic because of the leaves on the tree. You can see where the water course is at the bottom of page 14, and essentially you're looking at about 10 feet. This garage is about 10 feet from where the water course is. If you go to page 15 on Grove Street again, you will see the aerial view. I'm guessing, because I didn't want to go on the individual's property, figure the driveway's 14 feet across, so within 20 feet, this individual's garage is within the water course. If you go to page 16, you'll see Parkview Road, where the top photo, the garage is approximately 15 feet from the water course, and at the very top of Parkview, right before you start going up that big hill, that garage is 5 to 7 feet from where the water course is. Right where you see the tree line is actually a steep bank from where the water is. If you move over to page 17 on Jody Drive, you will see that that home is probably 20 to 25 feet, the whole house, from the water course. And Brookview, the corner of the home with the deck is 15 to 20 feet from the water course. Parker Farms Road, that development, again, 15 to 20 feet. And you can see an aerial view of the Brookview property, which is about 20 feet on the corner. If you go to Bailey Avenue, you can see the garage. You're less than 10 feet from the water course, which is in the tree line. Now, we looked at Erin's report, and she offered an alternative of putting the garage on the other side of the house. First off, by the way the house is set up with a bedroom, 2 bedrooms, it wouldn't make sense to have an entrance into a garage. There's also another problem, as you all know, is ideally you never want to put a driveway over a sewer lateral. The sewer lateral for the house runs along that side. As you can see in the bottom photo of how long this tape measure is, we're looking at over 107 feet back. If you made the driveway 12 feet wide, you're talking about 764 square feet of non-pervious surface. And with the grade, you're going to create sheet flow that, again, goes to the backyard. That would be eventually migrating into the creek by the shed where there is an erosion problem down from the garage. This area that the garage is proposed to go in is about safety of my mother. We don't believe it's a significant disturbance of the Highland Review area. In fact, with the mitigation techniques offered by Erin and this board, we'll be able to reduce the velocity of that sheet flow and actually limit the amount of that sheet flow flowing into it. We're willing to capture that water and bring it into the back. And my mother being so much for the town of Wallingford, all of the contractors, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I applaud you all for being here tonight, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and jobs are hard to come by. all from the architect, all the way down to the excavator, to the individuals building this, will all be Wallingford companies. This is about making Wallingford strong again. We believe that we could be good stewards, balancing environmental concerns with the safety of my mother and protecting the watercourse. We ask that this board please accept this recommendation. And again, thank you for your time, and I'll entertain any questions.
Okay. You've got a lot of issues that you brought up, some good, some are good for an argument, but not necessarily in regard to wetlands issues. So we'll start and see. Ally, comments?
I don't have any.
Nick?
Could you explain, the width of the garage is 24 feet by 26?
Yes, sir?
All right, on your picture here, is that tape after the garage, you footprinted the garage, then you measured to the bank?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what was that footage?
Okay, so from that, if you look on page 21, that yellow line that's in the stone area, if you took a tape measure directly and measured it right to where the water is when it rains, it's exactly 20 feet on that tape measure.
Okay. There's a couple things. As far as putting a dry well in the backyard, I'd rather see sheet flow go across the backyard, maybe put some kind of a riprap spreader back there that would catch the water.
Okay?
And the water that's coming off the roof, where were you're gonna pipe that to the backyard anyhow?
Yes, we were going to pipe that to the backyard and capture half of the water off the front of the house and move that through the pipe to the splash pad. And now you're saying put it out through riprap?
Yeah, I believe, I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I'd like to see that not underground for recharge, because it just causes like you said, that's not virgin soil back there, it's fill materials. I'd like to see a riprap spreader back there so all the water can shed flow can go behind the house and just dissipate downstream or find its way to the stream after the vegetation absorbs it. A lot of the erosion you have out there is caused from upstream development. It's something we work on whenever we get an application, because years ago we didn't care downstream, but today we have to, because here's a good incident right here. The upstream development is whacking away at the banks for the neighbors from up there all the way down to the Quinnipiac River. So that you're all in the same boat as far as, the erosion problem with the brook. There's a couple of things, but I don't see anything wrong with this myself, but I don't know how the rest of the commission feels. And I believe it needs to be done by an experienced contractor, not the cheapest price, but the best knowledgeable price to do the job, because there's a lot of quirks that need to be done, soil and erosion control barriers, maybe hay bales or whatever, to keep yourself away from the bank so there's no disturbed soils that are going to erode down into the brook and make it worse than it already is. So, I mean, that's how I feel.
We're committed, and I assure you that my brother worked for Don Rich for 20 years or so. He's picking the contractor. He's going to make sure that they're from Wallingford and that their reputation is the highest. My mother would demand that. And if the rest of the board concurs, we're more than willing to commit to your recommendation and do whatever it takes to make this board happy.
Well, there's a couple more commissioners, and then Erin has her voice of opinion.
Mr. Chairman. So, Nick, instead of riprap, would like a rain garden work, or is that not do the same thing?
I think
I don't think you have enough area for a rain garden.
no, I was just going to say
You're
the
taking a 20-foot slope. He says he's going to use 5 for construction. That's being tight. You got 15 feet on a steep bank.
Okay.
I don't think you have the right makeup for a rain garden on the topography of the land.
Okay.
That's what
Sure.
makes this application, not all the other things going on, but as close to the brook, elevation, and construction process.
Okay, just curious, thank you.
Debbie?
I see last year that you had a conference with staff about constructing a one-car garage. Why, do you really need a two-car garage?
We constructed this with the height of the door from the side on the north side to where you would enter into the garage, in order to make an ADA compliant ramp, you would need the distance with the switchback. You'd actually have to come down, do a landing, and then switch back, and then you'd still have room for a car. So we're anticipating that if we have to put a ramp in the house, we'll be able to keep it within the garage, protect the property values for the neighbors, and keep my mother's safety at the top of the chart.
Robert?
The footings that you're putting down, are you digging out the whole garage, you're putting a trench footing in? What's your plan of attack for construction of this? The reason why I'm asking is, depending on how much fill you have coming out of there, just want to make sure that it's covered, so it's not washing down, into the stream. If you're digging the whole thing out and then building it back up, depending on the type of earth that you have there, if it needs to be recompacted to put the cement down, it could be a lot of fill, it could be a little bit of fill. Just making sure that whatever you pull out, that it's in some type of control, whether you have a top over it or what have you. I don't know if you understand.
I'm not a contractor or excavator. Those are my brothers.
Right.
I was a firefighter. So any control that you mention, we'll do. So we'll make sure it's taken off the property or tarped appropriately with erosion control. So whatever Aaron writes up as a recommended control from the recommendations of the board, we'll accommodate you.
Jennifer?
The only thoughts I have is that as long as you pick a contractor that knows what they're doing, and I think Nick said that, and my question was, what makes this piece of property different than the other properties that you mentioned? I think Chairman Vitale, you mentioned it was the elevation that makes it a little unique, is that?
Well, all of the properties mentioned were primarily built before Wetlands Commission was involved creating this. But now, if you have the elevation of the garage or the property and the brook are the same, you kind of can control that issue. This, you're going to have a steep bank in a very short distance to deal with. And I think that's what, without going out and seeing all the other properties we saw, I think that's what makes this one a very sensitive issue. The ADA can go in the front yard, that's where most of them are. You're asking us to put something in permanently that may only be used temporarily, and at the time comes. So there's an issue when you're asking for a permanent structure just for the sake of a temporary ramp. Aaron?
Okay, this is the first I've heard about an ADA ramp. Could you clarify, is that inside the garage?
Yes,
But only when she needs it. You're
correct.
not going to put it in when you build it.
Correct. It's about planning. I mean, they're getting up in age, and we want to make sure that we can keep her in the home.
So it's a two-car garage, so you plan to put 2 cars in there?
Yes, my aunt's car and my mother's car at this time, but when we need to put a ramp in, you'd still be able to fit 1 car in there.
So if it has a ramp, only 1 car can go in there?
Yes.
Oh. All right.
They're only going to need 1 car if someone needs it.
Right, okay. So, so the environmental planner's report went out to the commission in the July packet. It has this drawing, which I helped the owner and I worked on that on his property. These are the 2 photographs that were attached to that. You can see in the one photograph that, well, it's kind of funny because most properties own to the midline of a stream. In this case, 19 Fritz Place owns on both sides of the stream. So they own, the 17 Fritz Place owns like only 4 feet behind, next to their shed. Only 4 feet. The rest is owned by 19 Fritz Place. So this proposed 2-car garage, that's why they had to go for a variance. It'll be the facade, the side of it will be 11 feet from the property line. So the side of it, I estimated 18 feet from the stream, but Mr. Ritchie said 20 feet, whatever. So it's 11 feet, the garage is going to be 11 feet from the neighbor's property. It's hard to wrap, it's easy to forget that because the stream is there. Okay.
If I could just weigh in before
No.
she moves on.
Let her finish.
Oh, anyway, so like Commissioner Phillips referenced, I was out there, gosh, a year and a half ago, and it was a one-car garage, and I didn't have an issue with it. I encouraged them to apply, and I thought it'd be approved. I thought there was likelihood it'd be approved. And now it's a two-car garage, and I go out there, and that bank of the river has been filled over the years, you know, probably incrementally, you know, with leaves and rubble and this and that. And I guess my biggest thing, I mean, two-car garages are normally fine. That's not in itself a big deal. Is that what people don't appreciate is there's a lot of work I do here as environmental planner that does not come before you. I've been called out to the Fritz Place neighborhood maybe 5 or 6 times in the 15 years I've been here because of flooding and drainage issues. And often I go out with Public Works or with the engineering department. And the biggest one was the flood just after the Maneri development was going in. There was a big rainstorm. It turned that river coffee with, you know, cafe au lait colored. And the river hopped. It's downstream this, it's supposed to go into a culvert. Well, it couldn't fit in. So it hopped onto the fellow's lawn, hopped over 2 lawns, and the dirt was in Fritz Place, and Public Works had to come and get it out. Like, scoop it out of the road. So I'm sensitive to it. I'm more sensitive to the nickel and diming that goes on. Of course, it goes on everywhere. It's not unique to Wallingford. It goes on everywhere, you know, just a little bit here, just a little bit over here. And then the neighbors suffer. These streams were not meant to carry all this water from the overdevelopment in the upper watershed. So if you read my report, and I was not favorable to this, and if you wonder why, you know, it's really more the backstory. I'm sure they can put in silt fence along the neighbor's stream. It's very important that they not get any construction debris or sediment on the neighbor's property. It's only 11 feet away from the side of the garage, so they have to be very careful about that.
But the brook is on the neighbor's property?
Yeah,
The brook is on the neighbor's property.
yes.
So I think you roughly 15 feet away from the water course then.
Well, I estimated 18, and Mr. Ritchie, I think you said 20.
20.
Yeah, so it's about that. It goes like, it's steep, so it's hard to measure when you're there without falling into the water. You know, it's a steep bank.
So, hang on just a minute. So you would like to see a one-car garage would be no problem?
I understand why the family wants a 2-car garage. I totally get it.
So the 2-car garage will work on this site with very special care in the 15 feet of slope?
Physically, yes, you could engineer this. Yes, I mean, it's fine. You could build it. It's buildable. They'd have to watch to not get rubble on the neighbor's property.
But is it going to protect our water course? Are we going to have an impact to the water course?
Yes, it's what I call nickel and diming. You know, it's a few thousand feet over here, a few hundred feet over here.
Because we're dealing with impervious surface?
Yes. And lack of vegetation, you know, when you take the vegetation, you know, when the vegetation goes away from the bank of a river, and the river has erosion, that the trees keep falling in, because the trees are undercut on the side of these rivers. We see it all over town. It's not unique to this spot.
Aaron, you can't cut him short on what he wants to do by what's happening in the river or the brook itself. You just said yourself, it's major developing upstream that's caused this. This gentleman's not going to stall, delay, or interrupt what's going on with that brook. Maybe we didn't do our task well enough upstream. We don't look far enough downstream. We knew this was going to be an issue when we let that project be approved. But for him, he's doing everything he can to reroute the water that's on that property to the back of the property with a level spreader with riprap. He's going to do whatever you tell him to do on the bank. If there is any disturbance whatsoever, he can put grass matting down to staple it to the earth. I mean, that's the key to this, is having the environmental planner watch the construction in sequences to see that it's being done properly. I think I would let that go about the upstream erosion on that river. You're talking about trees coming down and all that. This gentleman's applications are not causing this. This is just one small thing that he's gonna reroute the water so it's gonna get behind his house and further down the brook. Hopefully it'll slow it down enough that, I know personally, but I've been out there, it's not gonna make a difference what he's doing and what's going on out there. So,
Did you have some comments, sir?
Yes, briefly. Aaron talked about that it would only be 11 feet from the property line. You have to take into consideration the entire neighborhood and the year of the neighborhood. There's other garages on the same side of the street that's within 5 feet.
No, that's where you're wrong. See, that's the difference. When those were built, there was no regulations, so those are really out of the equation. This is your application, we're the commission that has to make a ruling on it. So you can't throw in what the rest of the neighborhood is involved in.
The only reason I mention that is that's why they granted the variance, because it stays with the character of the neighborhood, and there are other houses that are closer. That's the only reason I mention it.
The issue that we're dealing with is the effect it's going to have on the brook. That's really what we're dealing, what we're charged with.
Well, I think one thing that is clear is that this, once the construction's complete, this is actually going to have I don't think it'll be a significant enhancement, but it will be a little bit of an enhancement of what's there right now. And now that we're properly educated by this panel and Aaron, we are going to demolish the shed that is too close, that's blocking the sunlight for vegetation to protect it. Where she's talking about the brook overflowing is about 15 houses down the street. But as that brook comes through my mother's yard, by where the garage goes, right where the shed is when the brook turns to go down to the other end of the street. So this might help with some of that sediment, because we're willing to do whatever controls you recommend. We'll take down the shed, that will let light in, we'll plant the proper vegetation to help stabilize the bank right there. So I think that when we look at the totality of this project, it's actually going to make this water course a little bit safer. It's not going to be a hindrance to the water source. We want to protect the water source and protect my mother.
Is there a set of drawings, this actual set of plans for this project? Have you got a civil engineer or an engineer involved in the construction, the set of plans, not for the building, but for the site? Because I think, from what I'm listening to tonight, I don't want you to rely on Erin's comments as she comes out every time you dig a hole and say it should have been something different. I'm looking for a set of plans that you'll follow with the correct stormwater management control on it. Whether it's a level spreader, the new type level spreaders, whether it's hay bales, whether it's silt fence. I mean, you've volunteered to do all those things, but I think it would be better that they're on a plan, that she approves the plan, and then you follow whatever that plan is.
Yes, we have no issue submitting the plan to Aaron.
All right, so I guess by a registered engineer, it should be the professional engineer. Okay. Any other questions, Jennifer?
Nope.
Robert? Debbie? Nick?
Jim, I just think that whatever the engineer drafts is going to need a plus to that.
I'm sorry, Nick?
Whatever the engineer designs here, it's going to need a plus on top of that because of just the factor out there with the water, the brook, how the brook comes up and goes down. There's other reasons, but be aware that they're going to design it, but you may have to do more than just that. You're going to come in with a print to show us that it's on paper, but Aaron may come out there and say, hey, you're going to have to do a little more here, or you went too far. I want to get that protected before it washes down to the brook, right? So that's
No problem.
to be aware of.
Well, don't you think they submit a plan and Aaron's got to approve the plan before they start?
Or do we
She
approve?
still could she could still run into some trouble during construction.
I think she's still going to run into trouble with construction, especially in that area, because of the types of soils and so.
All All right, you understand where we're coming from?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if a motion made is to approve this tonight, subject to Aaron approving a PE map, an engineered map.
We would appreciate that.
All right. Everybody,
You don't want to see,
okay?
you don't want to see the plan next meeting? You don't want to see the plan next meeting?
well, when are you looking to start this project? Next spring?
We're looking to get Wallingford people back to work as soon as possible. I mean, we're looking
You
at,
know, don't push that one too far, because it's very difficult to get a contractor to do anything today. They are busy. Fortunately, with this, I assume with stimulus money and the fact that people aren't driving and they weren't going out to dinner, they're spending money on their houses. Swimming pools, Aaron can tell you, there's 25, 30 in-ground pools in Wallingford that went in, and there's so much activity. Finding a contractor is not the easiest job. So getting people back to work, they're working. If they want to work, they're working, they're available. But anyway,
understanding is we already have a contractor ready to
you
go.
already got a contractor, but getting Wallingford people back to work, I don't want to go there. Anyway, so you want to start tomorrow?
No, I want to start after we get the appropriate plan suggested by Commissioner
Well,
Kerr.
then
And get
you'll
the
be here
approval
next
from
month to
Aaron to
see us
sign off
then.
on the plan, and then be able to start construction. So if we got a favorable recommendation from this honorable board, contingent on Aaron signing off on the engineered plan, then that wouldn't be an unnecessary delay. And
Yeah, but Nick would like to see the plan come before us, or Ally would like to see the plan come before us.
I think we're on the same page with that.
So that's your 30 days. You're back to us for 30 days from now.
I mean, it depends how fast your engineer works. I mean, we don't want to approve this without having something in front of us that we can show. Aaron, is that what you're looking for?
Well, I think she should have it so that we can protect that water course as much as possible. I think we have an engineer en route. You can speak.
For the record, Rosalind Page, professional land surveyor from Wintermore Land Services, speaking on behalf of myself and my engineer, who we would most likely be preparing the plan for you due to our workload right now. I don't know that we can guarantee to have you a plan for the next meeting, in time, obviously, for Erin to have reviewed it and bring it to you. So,
So you can have a plan for the next meeting.
no, I'm saying we could most likely have a plan for the following meeting. 'Cause this is-
October?
Where are we now? September?
We're in September now.
September, yeah.
September now.
That's
But October's meeting, you won't have a site plan for October's meeting on the soil side, or the stormwater management side?
Probably not, because we will have to go out and do some additional survey work, some topography work. So obviously I have to get that done, and then my engineer has to do some other work. So we can certainly do the project. I just want to be realistic about, I can't guarantee right now that we could have a plan done in time, because this is the first I've heard of it. So, just,
They weren't moving that fast anyway.
We're looking at November then.
In November.
so we would probably be looking at the November meeting.
They would end up having to do the plan anyway before they even started construction, so
Well,
they're already
They-
looking at at least 4 or 5
they need a
weeks
plan
out.
for the, I would imagine some contractor, carpenter contractor would want a plan to go by.
I mean,
Our plan can be hand-drawn, can our plan be hand-drawn?
yeah, and it's only a 4-foot, it's with 4-foot footing, it's 24 by 26. I mean, it's gonna take them one day to dig it and set it up, one day to pour it, and any
But
spoils.
Rosalind, don't run away. Don't run away.
Any spoils that are on the site, they can have removed. They're capable of removing the soils. This thing could actually go up in 1 week because they've got the equipment to do the whole job.
Is it feasible to put a hand scratch plan, not a hand scratch plan, but a hand-drawn plan. It doesn't have to be signed by a PE, but something that says, this is the store, this is the level spreader, this is where the water's gonna go, this is what we're gonna do for erosion control, this is for shrubs, this is for silt fence,
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously do what we can.
by
I'm
next
just-
month.
I'm just looking, just thinking mentally about our current workload of projects that we already have. As you said, everyone's busy. So I just don't want to give false.
I think it's very important for this project to be a fact on record, what's gonna go,
Yeah.
by the environmental side. So we'll just have to wait until we're done.
So we can certainly work on getting a plan, the type of plan
If you
you
stay in contact with Erin, and if she's satisfied when the plan, if it's hand-drawn, if it's not surveyed out, we'll say,
Okay.
and come back next month, at least it'll have all the ingredients on the plan that we're asking for.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay?
Very good. Anything else, Erin?
No.
No. So we're tabled to next month.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move around here a little bit. 827.2, 59 Woodings Road, Charles Hemstock, in-ground pool. We approved this administratively, Erin. Everything's all fine. I don't think telling the commission anything too serious. Okay, application 827.4, 809 North Main Street Extension, David Warren Family Trust.
There are photos for that?
Good evening. Everybody all right? Everybody all set?
Good evening.
Okay. All right, for the record, my name is Rosalind Page, professional land surveyor from Winterbourne Land Services, with an office at 604 Center Street in Wallingford.
Sure. For your record again, I'm Michael Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers in Madison, Connecticut.
David McDonald, trustee of the property at 809 North Main Street Extension.
So I'll make my brief overview of of our request for for a permit. Mike will speak to the storm drainage design, and hopefully we can entertain your questions. So our request is for a permit to construct a 1,920 square foot building, storage garage for vehicles for the funeral home, and 2,800 square feet of pavement within 50 feet of an existing stormwater swale. The existing stormwater, would it be easier if I made my presentation from up there?
Sure.
Is that okay with
Let's just use the microphone.
Yep, sure. On now?
Yeah, you have to keep stay close to it.
So for your orientation, North Main Street extension is over here on the right-hand side of the map. North is facing up. This is the Walmart property in here. This is a commercial office building area down here with a variety of individual commercial buildings here. This is the existing funeral home property building here, and the entrance is in here. Parking lot is in here, yeah, that pretty much describes it. This was originally Cousins Restaurant. I'm sure many of you have been there when it was Cousins Restaurant, and obviously many people since then under its current ownership as a funeral home. So what the applicant would like to do is to construct the 1,920 square foot building here, an associated paved area here, and this would be a Morton building for the storage of the funeral home vehicles, the hearses, and so on. So we are proposing, there is an existing stormwater swale back in this area that was created in 1988 as part of the original site plan for Cousins Restaurant. It was designed apparently as a high-level overflow outlet for the dry well system that we've highlighted on the plan here in blue. This is the existing dry well stormwater management system that was approved and built in the late 1980s. There are three dry wells, 1, 2, 3. There's a catch basin here, a yard drain that takes the drainage from this grassed area into this dry well, which also takes the water from the upper driveway area. There's a dry well down here, which has, I'm not sure whether it's a roof drain or a footing drain, to be honest, but there's a pipe coming in here. It takes the drainage from here and some area in here. And then there is a dry well down here. There's an interconnecting pipe, which was shown on the original 1988 plan as being a perforated pipe. Obviously, we don't know whether it is, but that was the design, so we assume that's what got put in. And then there is this high-level overflow that goes from this dry well out into this swale area in the back. Since that time, so in 1988, this swale area, I just want to go over what happened in 1988. This swale area was flagged as an inland wetland by Frank Indorf, soil scientist at the time, due to the location of a stormwater discharge point on what was the Revere property, Revere Corporation property, now Walmart. So there was, in 1988, there was a head wall right about here, and it was a discharge point for the parking lot for the Revere Corp building that was there at that time. And drainage from that parking lot drained onto the applicant's property in this manner, heading south. In the mid-1990s, I'm sure many of you will remember that Kmart came in and bought the Revere Company property, and as part of their redesign of the entire property, they removed this head wall, they paved all of this area here to within 5 feet of the property line of the funeral home, and completely changed the drainage characteristics. So this head wall was no longer in existence, and the drainage on the what is now Walmart property now drains, this parking lot drains in a completely different sort of format. So the other thing that did occur in the mid-90s when Kmart, now Walmart, did their construction was they removed this head wall, but they then installed a 15-inch pipe to take any water that did accumulate in this swale area off into their drainage system. And that's the provenance of that 15-inch pipe. It's a discharge from this area off into their system. So David, we, as part of our application process here, we had David Lord from Soil Research Consultants has inspected this area and rendered his, submitted his report. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here this evening. Apparently, when the first Wednesday of the month is a popular time for towns to have their wetlands hearings, and he was supposed to be at 3 other meetings tonight, so he couldn't make it to this one. But he did submit his report to you and a follow-up addendum where he is of the opinion that due to the now 30-year removal of this area, that this is no longer wetland soils. And I believe you have that report. So what we are proposing as part of our application is to enlarge the existing swale, which is highlighted in solid green, and expand it to this larger area in order to accommodate drainage from our new site and improve the stormwater quality. And Mike Ott, as a professional engineer who has worked with the town engineer to come up with a design that meets those needs, he will describe that in more detail to you. So what I do want to acknowledge is that we do realize it was premature of the applicant to, after cutting the trees down in this area within 50 feet of this swale, he cut the trees down in here and regraded the property. There was a lot of debris and spoil piles in there. He did remove those, and he did refill the area with clean fill in anticipation of getting his approvals. It was premature to do that. We recognize that, and we just want to acknowledge that that happened. One comment I do want to correct, a comment from Erin's report. One of the comments that Erin had said in her report was that there has been additional filling in July and August. And that is in fact not the case. There's been no filling, subsequent filling on the property since the applicant did the work earlier in this year. So I just would like to note that for the record, that is not, there has been no additional regrading activity on that site in July and August as she had suggested. So at this point I would like to turn it over to Mike Ott, our professional engineer, to describe the details of our stormwater management system.
Thank you, Russ. So we have done two things with regard to stormwater management for this site. We looked at the required water quality volume for the increase in impervious surface area that is being proposed, which is, as Roz explained, the building and a small pavement area, and it totals 5,045 square feet. So,
Could you speak louder, please? Could you get closer to the microphone?
I'm sorry.
Maybe?
I'm sorry. So the new impervious surface area totals 5,045 square feet. So we made sure that we had we addressed water quality volume from that new impervious surface area. We've done that by, as Rosalind explained, excavating the rather small basin area that's there today at the very west end of the site and making it as large as we could and as deep as we could, given the area available left on the site. And we were able to provide a water quality volume that's almost 2.5 times the computed water quality volume per the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. Those computations were submitted to the town engineer. So just to give you some numbers, the computed water quality volume is 420 cubic feet, and we were able to provide 1,020 cubic feet. And the way we're providing water quality is we excavated below the outlet of that basin. So the initial frequent smaller depth storm events, the water quality events, will go into that basin and have an opportunity to infiltrate into the underlying soils without being released from the basin. So that's how we provided water quality benefits. And then the second thing we did at the request of the town engineer, she asked us to look at an analysis of the peak rates of discharge of runoff from the entire site for a full range of rainfall events, the 2-year event through the 100-year event, to make sure that our excavated basin could act as a stormwater detention basin and reduce the increase in peak discharges resulting from our small increase in impervious surface, reduce them down to the existing peak rates of discharge. That basin, again, we made it as large. We started out by making it as large as we could, and when we run the analysis, we found that we, in fact, reduced the developed condition after the building and the new pavement area are constructed well below the existing condition. So we've actually provided some additional peak discharge control, and we did that because we have a much increased storage area. In fact, it increased by about 1.5 times what's there today. And we there's a 15-inch diameter pipe outlet today, and we're going to modify it so that it's a 12-inch circular outlet, and that will control the more than the 15-inch does. That'll control the release rate. So we were able to meet her requirements. We submitted computations to her and a summary cover letter, and I hope you all have that, or you've seen that in your packets. So that's the second thing we did for the site. We've made sure we have had adequate water quality volume, and we've reduced peak rates of discharge, not only for our new impervious surface, but we've actually reduced them from the overall site from what they are today. So be glad to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have any questions.
Deb?
No.
Robert? Jennifer?
I have no questions.
Okay. You're on a very sandy plain in that area. The whole area is a complete sandy plain. The interesting thing when I'm listening to you about this water storage this isn't the headwater of the water course, this is the exit of the water course. Usually, we always like to get rid of the water at the exit and not have it interfere with the peak coming down as the storm continues. So I find it interesting that you're looking to store water here instead of getting rid of it before it becomes blended in with the 100 acres or 500 acres or 1,000 acres that feeds it. That brook that travels, crosses North Main Street by the pool, starts to decrease just a minute as it crosses North Main Street. Gets into the sand, and it does decrease and decrease. If you check it when it gets down by P&A Park and gets down by Quinnipiac River, there's quite a different size compared to where it crossed North Main Street on it. But this storage, this water storage, if this is going to handle the whole parking lot, I guess it can only be an improvement with the exception of trying to control it at the exit of the water course. But anyway, Aaron?
Mike, if we could just clarify, your last 3 sentences was like something we revised the plan and the calculations, and we submitted it. Right, wasn't that in middle of July? Or
No,
did
we-
you do
we
another
submitted-
one?
Oh yeah, Allison and I worked together within the past week or so, and on the 28th of August, whatever day that was, we sent her revised calculations as well as this summary letter, which I've written all over, but this is the copy of the summary letter we sent her. So you may not have seen them, Aaron, but Allison and I-
Right, no, the commission, no, you didn't, right, so we don't have another plan, I was just confused.
Oh.
There's not yet another revised plan that I should have gotten, right?
Correct, I think Allison was gonna write a memo, and I
She did.
haven't seen it.
The commission has a copy
Yeah.
of the memo. I handed out tonight, but I think I also put it in Monday's packet. It's a one-page comment letter, and she's asking for a few changes. Did you see that, Mike?
I did not, but I do know from speaking with her on the phone that the revised information we submitted addressed her requests.
All right, I can give you a copy of it. She has a
Actually,
bunch-
I've got it. Rosalind just passed it to me.
Okay, she's got a bunch of concerns, so we're waiting for your final on that, with these to incorporate what she's asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually explain to the commission what the changes are. The town engineer asked in item number 1, the town engineer asked for the peak discharge analysis that we did and provided her. Item number 2, I cleared up on the phone with her. The dry wells are all existing on the site. There are 4 existing dry wells on the site, so we cleared that up with her on the telephone. Item number 3, right in my letter to her, we state that we will replace the very last storm sewer. It is currently smaller in diameter than the up-gradient storm sewers, so we agreed to replace that storm sewer with an 18-inch pipe constructed at a minimum 1% slope. You should see that right in my cover letter to Allison. And the last comment, number 4, was to show the door locations on the proposed building, which I'm sure we can take care of.
Could you explain, over here, the difference? I mean, when I go out and look at these quote-unquote dry wells, they look to me like a yard drain. I mean, they don't, when I think of dry well, I think of it going in and infiltrating down into the ground.
Right.
So aren't they really yard drains because they have a connection and they take the water off?
So what we did was, so there's 4 existing dry well structures. They were there, they were part of the Cousins restaurant development, I think long before it was a funeral home, I believe.
Yes, the parking lot really didn't change much.
So in our analysis, we ignored them. We made believe they just don't even exist, which is conservative. We made believe that it's just solid pavement, there's no inlets, those 4 inlets don't exist. Because we don't really know much about them. Rosalind's field crew tried to estimate their sizes. They think they're 900-gallon dry wells, which is about, if I remember right, about 120 cubic feet of storage. It's not a lot of storage. We don't know how the parking lot is really graded and does the water really, how much water actually gets into them. So we conservatively just ignored them like they're not there and ran our analysis. So if they provide some storage benefit, that's great. If they don't, our analysis shows that the site, we've still made improvements to the site.
My other question is, could you define you keep on saying over again, and I was speaking with David Lord today, and in his report, he has a second report. The first report I sent you in the Friday night packet. The second report, which is an addendum to the first report, I was faxed today, I think, and I handed it out today on the dais, David Lord's report. But both David Lord and you, Mike, refer to water quality basin. You both refer to the existing water quality basin. Could you explain what a water quality basin is?
Yeah, I haven't called the existing, so back up, on the site today, there's an existing depression, an excavated area, or possibly formed by the construction of the Walmart parking lot to the west, possibly. I haven't called that a water quality basin. It's simply a depression. It provides some storage volume, and it's very small, and it has a 15-inch diameter pipe outlet from it. The basin that we've created, I'm calling I should say, it provides water quality benefits, as I said, because we excavated below its outlet to provide storage volume to allow the frequent, smaller depth rainfall events an opportunity, the stormwater runoff from them, an opportunity to temporarily store and infiltrate into the soil. Infiltration, as you know, provides water quality benefits. If that,
What's
if that
the
helps.
bottom of this basin? What's it, is gonna be grass basin?
Just, yes.
Gonna be mowed and maintained, it's not gonna be growing up the brush?
The idea is to maintain it. Today, it's pretty grown up. I looked at the site again tonight, it's pretty grown up.
Well, you had a biofilter for 50 feet wide there across before you cut the trees out and everything. So now you've got just this basin going on there. If it goes back up again, I think you'd defeat your purpose of your storage and your function.
Yeah,
So I think it's a requirement that it's gotta be designed so it can be mowed and maintained.
I would agree. Yeah, I think it would be, it's relatively small, it'd be easy to cut, to
And
keep
flat.
cut.
So, all right.
The other thing I wanted to comment on is the confusion about the filling, and maybe you guys can explain it. I have various photographs here that show the initial filling was gray, and if you go out there today, the top surface is like this orangey, purplish gravel.
I can tell you, they finished probably before May with that, and I mean, I can show you, it's under surveillance 24 hours a day. For the last 60 days, I could show you a video of nothing happening there. I think maybe just from rain and whatnot, maybe the color changed a little bit.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Yeah, nothing's been done there.
Okay. Let's move on there, and if that's all we're worried about is the color of the fill.
Oh, no, I got other things to worry about, but.
On this application? No.
Yes, I'm confused. I guess what the commission is being explained to the commission is that this was a wetland in 1988. And then over the years, various projects went on next door that ended up getting filled. Is that right? I mean, maybe if David Lord
I
were
don't
here.
think this property got filled, the property around it got filled.
Well, why isn't it a wetland today in the back?
I'm not sure if it was ever a wetland as such. I mean, Frank Indorf indicated it, but as far as standing water, I never remember standing water when I grew up.
Oh,
in
no,
the
no,
area.
no, he said it was Walpole, which is like an alluvial fine sandy loam, so it would drain. The floodplain and alluvial soils are excessively drained. They go right, it goes right
You
through.
go right through it.
But
right.
I noticed the elevation is like 73, and now it's like 80, 85 or something.
Yes, Roz?
That's not a change in the elevation. My plan is based upon an assumed datum. So I am not on the same elevation datum as the 1988 Cousins restaurant plan. So it isn't that there isn't a 10-foot fill. No. I'm just on an assumed datum. We started at 100 up on North Main Street Extension, so.
All right, and Mike, we had talked a few weeks ago about the groundwater level. Do you have any idea where we had a drought when we were discussing this. There was a long drought this summer. But do you know where the groundwater table usually is?
So whenever we design a water quality basin, that's one of the things we need to look at is where the groundwater elevations are. And this is all sand here, and it's can be difficult to determine. So we had David Lord take a look at the overall site and vicinity, and he's made a statement in one of his reports, I can't remember which one, that that the groundwater levels should be far enough below the bottom of our basin, if that's your concern, Aaron. Just given the general lay of the land, if you look outside the site and knowing that it's sand, the groundwater table should be low enough.
Because when Frank Endorf did his report, he put in his report that the groundwater table was at 8 inches down. But so much development has gone on in this vicinity that maybe the groundwater table is no longer where it used to be 40 years ago.
Well, the brook, the flowing brook that's not that far away from it is a lot more than 8 inches below this site.
Can I say something? Rosalind, did you say did you stick the catch basins to see how deep the wells were?
I did, we did in fact take the tops off the dry wells, and I did in fact look inside them. I
Did
even,
you see any water in them?
no, there was no water in any of the dry wells.
Oh, there, the groundwater table's gotta be 4 or 5 feet anyway.
I dug down 18 feet there. I did all the drainage work. And I dug down 18 feet and I hit red rock before I hit water because there was no water there. And those dry wells are supposed to be 1,800 gallon dry wells, and I think I dumped about 100 tons per catch basin with a 1.25 inch stone and then wrapped it with Marathi cloth. So I know there was way overkill on the storm. Because of the sand, I had to use more stone, and then we wrapped it with Marathi cloth. So I know those are supersized dry wells. But I went down 18 feet, and I believe I hit red rock before I hit any water. Now, I know the brook's only about 8 or 10 feet elevation difference between that lot and where the flow line is in the brook. But I think it's because the sand is so clean and so spongy, everything just sucks right into the ground, into the earth. So,
So, what else, Aaron? Because we're ready to move on unless you got something.
Well, I'm curious why the owner filled an area that is proposed to be a long, skinny storm basin.
Well,
Today, most of it's filled.
No, the back area, I don't think was changed much from where it was when.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Nothing was really changed from what was already existing back there if you walk there, except obviously over 30 years of Walmart garbage and whatnot. It became a real eyesore and the trees were in really rough shape. That's what started it.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. I mean, in the photographs I took today, that back corner, that northern part is all filled with this purplish gravel.
but how
Nothing
much?
else has been filled.
How
I
much
mean-
over the parking lot? Because the parking lot, Nick, is about that elevation, wasn't
Eileen, did you pass the photographs down?
I did.
Yeah.
it dropped down in the back there. Where they want to do the construction work, it taped right off to the back. And I believe when Walmart built their parking lot, they raised their parking lot just a foot or so higher than what the elevation is out there where they're working. So,
No, I'm saying this summer they filled an area that was simultaneously proposed to be a storm basin if this commission approves it. So I don't know why they would go to the trouble of filling it this summer in June and putting that pretty gravel on the top if it's only going to be dug out if this commission approves it.
it? I don't think you're digging out anything. The gravel you got in there now, are you digging out some of it?
There will be some gravel at the extreme north end. If you look at the detention basin we're proposing in green, it's sort of pear-shaped. Up at the pointy end, up at the top, yes, there will be some fill that will have to be pulled out of there.
That you put in?
Yes. And the applicant is aware of that. Obviously, the design of this basin has been evolving.
They put fill in. They're not denying they put fill in. Now they're taking it out to put the retention pond in.
It's just curious.
I don't know what they're curious about. What is there to be curious about?
I think it was a lack of coordination between the engineer. He
Well,
designed a
maybe-
basin and then the owner fills the basin area. It's
Well,
just weird.
maybe they weren't aware of wetland regulations when they put the fill in there, and now they're trying to make it right. I mean, we're dealing with what we have in front of us. Are we satisfied with the retention basin and the plan?
Well, I think Mike is going to do a revised plan, right? And revise calculations and get it to us, correct?
No, we're not revised calculations. We submitted the calculations to the town engineer. I think Rosalind, let me look again, I'm sorry. I think Rosalind simply is going to show the most downstream pipe to be replaced, and she's going to show doors on the buildings per the town engineer's request. The stormwater calculations have been.
I don't know where the
submitted.
revised plan, other than the building.
And the pipe. that one pipe.
Some pipe is gonna be revised, I don't know which one.
The town engineer had requested that the most downstream pipe be removed, as we said, and replaced with an 18-inch pipe, Rosalind will.
Erin, this pipe, the existing pipe from the last existing dry well out into the detention area here, she's requested that that pipe be modified to be an 18-inch, where it's currently a 15-inch. So we'll excavate that out, take that pipe out and put in an 18-inch. And then as part of this final design calculations that Mike has prepared with input from Allison, this outlet, 15-inch outlet will have a 12-inch thing put on the front of it. Sorry, don't know the technical word. And so our plan will, our final plan will be revised with a revision date. It will show that, it will show this, and it will show the 3 overhead doors on the south side and the person door, I believe, on the north side.
2-person doors.
2-person doors.
One on the parking lot, one on facing Walmart.
And, what was I gonna say, excuse me, where's the dirt gonna be stockpiled that you're taking out for that long skinny basin?
Any material that we take out here will be taken off-site because it will not be needed.
It won't be stockpiled for a few days on the property or a few months on the property?
It will be removed.
And so you're gonna submit new calculations to me?
No, we've submitted the calculations to the town engineer, and she's approved them. Just the revised plan, I believe, is what we'll submit. Be glad to give you, maybe you didn't get a copy, Aaron, but be glad to get it to you. But we did submit it to the town engineer.
Okay.
All right, okay, let's see. Commissioners, are we prepared to vote on this tonight? And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to, regarding the significant activity of this application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application 20-7.4 809 North Main Street Extension, David T. Warren Family Trust Storage Garage and Stormwater Management Facility be deemed not a significant activity.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. And any comments? Call for a vote. Bob?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Yes. Now, if we'll call for a motion to approve or deny this application, but I think it's subject to a current map based on the request of the town engineer. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application 20-7.4 809 North Main Street Extension, David T. Warren Family Trust, Storage Garage, and Stormwater Management Facility be approved with, subject to a current map submitted.
Could we make that subject to a final revised plan that will be coming in honoring the town engineer's comments of August 28th?
Right.
All right, correct.
And I would like to see a stormwater management plan because the existing stormwater area was not managed at all. And so I would like this future basin to have a management plan of some sort. So they could just,
Okay.
derive one and hand it in
Mow the grass.
and clean out all the inlets and outlets,
So you want a final plan from the engineer, using
Yeah, just a
comments from the
page.
engineer?
You can do it, I'm sure, in a page, how the owner will maintain this basin. There's a procedure, how you maintain a basin, you check it
We are
quarterly.
in the middle of a motion, so we got to condense it. We're not really right? You modifying your motion
Yes, I will modify the motion
to include,
a final plan that incorporates all the requirements of the town engineer and a stormwater management plan.
okay, motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. Any other discussion? Call for a vote. Bob?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
I just have one question for Roz. Roz, is that overflow in the back catch basin, is that producing water out of it, or
Is that what, sorry?
is the outlet pipe in that last catch basin expelling water out of it?
I've never seen water coming out of it.
No water ever come out?
Go from 15 to 18 with the 1,800 gallon dry wells in that sand. I can't see how any water can. If it misses the catch basin and goes overland before, I could see how water got off the site, but I think that's a stretch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, the next application is going to be A27.1, 521 Tully's Road in Wharton Brook, Pfizer. But I'm going to take a couple of minute break. Yeah. Okay. We're back in business. Application A20, 7.1, 521 Tully's Road in Wharton Brook. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Commission. We do appreciate the opportunity to present and discuss this wetlands remediation project with you. My name is Lucas Hellerich. I'm the engineer for the project. I work for Woodard & Curran out of Middletown, Connecticut office. I'm a Connecticut licensed professional engineer. I'm a Connecticut licensed environmental professional as well. I have nearly 20 years of professional experience. A number of projects that I've worked on have been similar to the project that we'll be discussing this evening. I have a BS in civil engineering and an MS and a PhD in environmental engineering, all from University of Connecticut. And I'm here presenting with my associate, Kyle Lepigian.
Thanks, Luke. My name is Kyle Lepigian. I'm a technical manager and ecologist with Woodard & Curran and serving in the wetland scientist role for this project. I have a bachelor's degree in biology and a PhD in environmental science policy and management. And I've got 15 years of experience in remediation and restoration, an additional 5+ years as an ecologist in other capacities.
So we'll start with an overview of the project. We'll include some background information as well. And Kyle will discuss some details related to some important aspects of the project, such as tree protection, wetland restoration planning, and we'll then conclude with some reviews of the reviews that have been done by Ms. O'Hare on this project, and then how we've addressed those comments to date. So to give a little bit of, I guess, background for the project, the purpose of the project is that the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP, is requiring that the wetland soils that we'll talk about tonight are required to be remediated because of the presence of nickel. Nickel's a heavy metal. It can be toxic to certain ecological receptors like invertebrates, for example. So when we were looking at the project in terms of a remediation project, we tried to approach this in the way of trying to minimize overall impacts to the wetland during the project, and also trying to balance the remediation requirements with the requirements of the various agencies that are reviewing this project as well. The other item to note is that these are temporary impacts, temporary disturbances, and they will be restored. So we're not constructing anything, we're merely trying to improve the quality of this wetland through this remediation project, which is required by Connecticut Deep. So in terms of improvements, we're removing that nickel impacted soil, and currently there's also in the center of the wetland, which I'll discuss in a minute, there's a number of invasive species that are present, and those invasive species will be removed as part of the project as well, because we're replacing that with clean soil. In terms of other stakeholders that are involved with this project, Connecticut Deep, the remediation division, they've reviewed the remediation approach, they've concurred with that approach. Currently, we're going through the public notice that's required by Connecticut Deep for this project. We held pre-application meetings with Army Corps of Engineers on the project, and through that process, it was determined that this project fell under a general permit application category rather than an individual permit category. So the individual permit is typically used for large impact projects, but Army Corps felt that the general permit was more appropriate for this project. In addition, the Army Corps is also requiring a fairly rigorous monitoring plan following the restoration phase. Kyle can speak to that, as well as the restoration plan itself. In concert with Army Corps, US EPA has been involved as well. They're reviewing the wetland restoration planning efforts to help Army Corps with their review of the application. And then, of course, we're also reviewing this with Wallingford Planning and Zoning following the process here. So our client, Pfizer, they're responsible for this project. They're responsible for the remediation, they're responsible for the restoration, and then also for the subsequent monitoring that's required for this project. So they're really here to make sure that this project is implemented properly and the right monitoring and restoration is done following the remediation. So that's their involvement. Okay. So just a little bit of, I guess, physical reference for the site. As mentioned, 21 Tully's Road. This is the Amatec facility on Tully's Road, and 5 Tully's Road, also owned by Amatec itself. This is the active manufacturing portion, the active portion of the operation. This is Tully's Road on the north. The Amtrak line and embankment is over to the east. You'll note that Wharton Brook runs from the right to the left. And in terms of features here, the yellow shaded area represents the upland review area. The green represents the delineated wetland within this area. And then again, Wharton Brook is shown in blue. In terms of the excavation itself, we'll go through some of the details in a bit, but to orient yourself, what we're talking about is in the center of this excavation, and we'll talk about how we determine these depths, but this is a 2-foot excavation depth in the center. And then on either side, we were able to determine that 6 inches on the east and the west portion, 6-inch excavation depth is sufficient to meet the remediation requirements for the wetland. So as most remediation projects go, there's typically a number of environmental investigations, there's soil sampling, testing, analysis. For this project, there was also an ecological risk assessment that was done, and this was all done under the supervision and review by Connecticut Deep. So as part of that process, they determined that nickel needed to be remediated, and there's certain criteria associated with that. Really the best way to remediate nickel in a wetland like this is to excavate out that soil. There's really not alternatives to excavation, removal of that nickel impacted soil, and then disposal at a licensed facility like a landfill, for example, where it's safely capped. So in this case, once the soil is excavated, we'll backfill to existing grades and then restore the wetland, and we'll talk about some of those details in a bit. But in terms of background, when in December of 2019, we elected to conduct some additional soil sampling within the wetland, and when we approached the project, the original concept was kind of a 2-foot excavation across the entire wetland, clear cutting the trees, really a fairly straightforward, typical remediation project. We elected to do some additional soil sampling to really understand where that nickel was and delineate it. And as a result of that, that's why we have the 6-inch and the 2-foot depth intervals, rather than having a straight 2-foot excavation across the entire wetland. And in concert with that, about the same time, December, I think it was 18 of 2019, we approached Ms. O'Hare in Planning and Zoning and had a joint meeting, a pre-application meeting to discuss the project. And during that meeting, there were some concerns raised about removing all the trees, flooding and erosion. So we thought about that, and we took our soil sampling data, we took the concerns of Ms. O'Hare, and we developed a revised plan. And the purpose of that revised plan was to try to mitigate that impact to the wetland. So that revised plan essentially was to retain as many of the large trees as we could throughout the wetland, throughout that remediation area, and then to carefully remove soil to the tops of those root zones within the drip line, the canopy of those large trees. Again, rather than cutting the trees down, removing the trees and removing all the soil. We brought that approach to Connecticut Deep. We had a number of meetings with Connecticut Deep to discuss that, and they approved that plan, they concurred with that approach. So it was really trying to marry or mesh their requirements and try to come up with a plan to really minimize tree removal and help to put that wetland in a position where, following remediation and restoration, it would be better off to be restored. So, kind of going back up here to discuss some details. So as we've laid out in our plans, there's a number of steps here. We're going to start by mobilizing to the site. We have a number of areas upgrading outside of the upland review area, outside of the wetlands, where we can stage equipment, office trailers, that sort of thing. We would then identify those trees that we want to retain. We've already inventoried those trees, we've surveyed in those trees, we know where they are, what they are. So we would identify those trees to be saved. We would then install erosion and sedimentation controls around the work area, selectively remove smaller diameter trees to access those different work areas. We have several different anti-tracking pad in temporary nature through the upland portion here to access that wetland. And then importantly, there's an existing stormwater outfall here. It has a riprap, swale, kind of a plunge pool type setting. And what we're proposing here, because we're going to be excavating in this area, and we have silt fence around this area, that during the course of the project we would temporarily reroute that stormwater to a fairly identical structure just on the exterior outside of the excavation area. So we would connect a pipe to that outfall. It's an 18-inch outfall. Have that pipe run, maintaining pitch, and we would have a stormwater dissipation area surrounded by erosion and sedimentation controls during the course of that project. And then following the project, once we've backfilled excavations, once we've restored the area, that stormwater outfall would be put back in its original position. I guess to note in terms of erosion and sedimentation control and thinking about the location and proximity of Wharton Brook, there's a few measures that we're taking. One is a double row of sedimentation erosion control, so silt fence along this southern edge along Wharton Brook, even where it's not abutting up against Wharton Brook. And then we do have a portion of this excavation where it's fairly close to Wharton Brook. And that's an area that we've identified to have proactive deployment of kind of water diversion structures like a porta dam, if you're familiar with that concept. So essentially a temporary barrier so that if Wharton Brook were to rise some level, that water would not rush into the excavation footprint. In addition, we're also proposing to perform these excavations working from an area closest to Wharton Brook in cells, excavate, backfill, and prioritizing the backfill around those large trees to help preserve them, and then pull that soil back up towards the upland review area, and we have staging areas for that soil before it gets loaded into trucks for off-site disposal. And that's where that soil is securely staged. There's erosion and sedimentation controls around those piles, and there's plastic sheeting over those piles when they're not being actively filled or when the soil is not being loaded into trucks. So the idea here is that we're kind of moving from the brook back up towards the upland review area to give the portion of the area that's closest to the brook the most time to stabilize. And then following excavation and backfill, and in terms of backfill, the 6-inch areas, those are going to be backfilled with organic rich soil to emulate what's there in the wetland right now. Within the 2-foot area, through all the soil characterization work that's been done at the site, we've identified roughly a 12 to 18-inch thick zone of more sandy gravelly material. So similar material to that will be brought in for that depth interval, and then the top 12 inches will be backfilled with organic rich soil, again to emulate the wetland itself. So what I'd like to do now is give Kyle a chance to talk about the wetland restoration plan and also the tree protection plan that we've thought about here.
So broadly speaking, the wetland restoration plan for the site was developed with 3 main principles in mind. The first being to restore in kind. So that's the intention here, is to, as Luke was mentioning, bring in similar soils, recreate a similar habitat type over the long term, and grade the site to the elevations that are similar to what's under the existing conditions. And again, to result in no net loss of flood storage capacity on the site. The second principle is really to focus on native plantings and to reduce the number of invasive species on the site. So there is an invasive species control plan, and many of the plants that are being planted, the majority of them, are all species that are currently present in the area. And finally, the third main principle is really to commit to a long-term monitoring and maintenance plan for the site over a period of up to 10 years with the goal of restoring similar habitat conditions and functions and values to the wetlands. The specifics of the restoration plan were developed based on Army Corps guidance and then tailored to site-specific conditions. So the Army Corps guidance is the New England District Compensatory Mitigation Guidance, and some of the recommendations within that document that were adhered to and appropriate for the site included planting a tree density of greater than 400 trees per acre, and a tree and shrub density together of greater than 600 per acre, which is consistent with site conditions. Additionally, there's an intention to add woody debris back into the habitat as a wildlife habitat, nesting areas, roosting areas, at approximately 4% of the surface area of the site, which again is consistent with Army Corps guidance. And that'll be put in as a series of brush piles. And finally, a monitoring plan, as I mentioned, will be in place. Monitoring twice per growing season, up to 10 years of monitoring, and those reports will be submitted to the Army Corps for review and comment. In terms of the execution, following up from where Luke left off, the initial seeding and stabilization of the areas, the cells where the excavation takes place, will happen immediately after the excavation. So excavate, backfill, seed the areas, and then install a biodegradable erosion control blanket over the disturbed areas. And we're proposing a fully biodegradable blanket, sort of a mid-range in terms of the shear strength and the rate at which it decomposes. So no polypropylene netting or anything along those lines to prevent any wildlife entrapment. Once the entire area is stabilized, and the next step would be to plant the area, and that would happen at a seasonally appropriate time. Preferably, our preference would be for the work to happen in the spring, so that we have a full growing season for those plants to establish, allow extra time for the seed mixture to germinate. There is another planting window in late summer, fall, that's also possible, but again, not really the preferred period of time for that work. And then in terms of once the planting is in place, the selected contractor would have a warranty and some monitoring and maintenance obligations of their own as part of the specifications, which we feel is important to keep them engaged in the process. And then moving forward, again, as long as 10 years, Pfizer would be responsible for the monitoring plan and any maintenance that's required in order to meet established performance criteria. Touch briefly on the proposal to maintain the trees on the site. Again, as Luke mentioned, we've identified all of the 15-inch or larger trees present within the excavation area for retention as part of the work. This will help maintain some of the habitat value and some of the stratification within the forest layer and provide a bit of a jump start as part of the restoration. Will also help to provide some soil stabilization and some shade for the newly installed plantings. The way this would work is we would establish a perimeter around each of these trees based on how large they are. So larger trees would have a larger perimeter. That would be established at the beginning during mobilization prior to any heavy equipment being on site. And so any heavy equipment would be restricted from entering those perimeters around those large trees to prevent compaction of the roots. Within those perimeters, there'd be scraping, hand removal, light equipment used to remove accessible soils up to the top of the roots or between roots to a maximum of 6 inches. And other equipment such as a Vector truck might be used to help suck up some of those soils once they've been loosened, essentially a vacuum hose. And then once that work's complete, the area would immediately be backfilled and stabilized with erosion control blankets, seeded to as quickly as possible in order to make sure that moisture is retained within those tree roots. We have had success with this approach at other sites, and in fact we've used this at another site where a very aggressive excavation plan was in place, much more aggressive than's being proposed here. And we did find at that site that we had very good success. All of the trees survived within the 5-year monitoring period that we had for that site. So we do think that this provides a really good chance for these large floodplain trees to survive, while at the same time balancing the need to remove the impacted soils from the site.
So, taking off from where Kyle finished there, really to help with the overall restoration, take advantage of that full growing season, we really would like to commence this project this year if possible, late fall, early winter, stabilize the site, and then come back in that spring season and finish the replanting across that wetland area. The schedule itself, we're anticipating a couple months of activity on site. The excavation, it's approximately 32 to 3,300 cubic yards of soil. Excavation, staging, disposal, that's several weeks worth of active excavation and backfilling in concert. Again, performing that work in cells. So in terms of the comments that Ms. O'Hare generated thus far and the reviews that have been done, there were 2 sets of comments provided. The first was on August 6th and the second was on August 21st. There was also a site visit performed by Ms. O'Hare and Mr. Talbot on August 11 as well. We've addressed all of the comments and we provided a response to comments package. I have a copy here on August 27, and we also revised our drawings for the site, and what we did was we incorporated all of the changes that Ms. O'Hare requested into that drawing set. We also prepared a separate color shaded plan to help with ease of review, and that's very similar to the plan that you see there on the easel. We also submitted a soils report that was provided as an attachment, this document here, and that was to meet a request as well. And another request was a contingency plan, and this contingency plan was primarily focused on flooding mitigation measures, erosion mitigation measures for this project. And that contingency plan includes pre-construction activities, activities performed during construction, and also activities performed post-construction as well. So just to conclude here, in summary, this is a remediation project that's required by Connecticut Deep to remove nickel impacted soil from the wetlands. We have developed a fairly comprehensive restoration plan with contingencies built in, and overall this project will improve the quality of the plan by removing that nickel, removing invasive species, and restoring it to where it should be. And at this point we'd be happy to take any questions from the commission.
Thank you. Aaron, you've spent a lot of time on this application, and I know you're far better at telling us your feelings before we start trying to ask questions on it. What's the issues here that you've worked on?
Thank you. I'm going to try to, I'm going to read from my environmental planners report that went out on Friday night. You got it Friday night. Just because I summed it up well there in the recommendations. Let's see. This office has begun communication with the DEP remediation contact person that was, that they told me the name of who to contact at DEP. And the DEP wetlands personnel, and there will be follow-up inquiries to more fully understand the permitting coordination involved. Parentheses, DEP, Army Corps, Inland Wetlands, PCC, and I didn't write it in, but EPA, and the benefits and losses entailed in the proposed removal of a floodplain forest, which is a designated Connecticut critical habitat, the current, quote, ecological risk posed by the historic contamination, that's mostly nickel, the likelihood of successfully creating a viable, fully functional floodplain forest back again, and the risks involved in such an excavation project in the floodway. So it's a 2.2 acre project, half of which is located in the floodway. The whole thing's in the floodplain, but half of it's in the floodway. So that kind of sums up everything I'm looking at in here in the project. In going over in this presentation here, I heard a lot about, you know, the Army Corps is interested in restoration, so is EPA is also interested in restoration, and that's great. The one thing I didn't hear mention was which agency is looking into the floodway aspect of it. I didn't hear that mentioned of all those, DEP, the Corps, and EPA. Is there anyone who's focusing on that? Because remediation is not an uncommon activity. Usually it's in the upland, and when we've had it come before the commission, it's a small, a wetland, but it's small. I mean, the size of that dais maybe. I mean, it's not very extensive, the ones we've been dealing with. So what's unique about this to our town is that it's in the floodway. An acre and a half. I mean, an acre, 1.1 acres, that's a lot. That's a lot of habitat. And it's on a slope. It's not flat, it's sloping land. When we went out there, surprised how sloping it is. And as everyone knows, a floodplain forest, the roots of those plants, the trees, the vines, the ferns, they hold that very fine sandy soil in. That's what's holding that soil in when a flood comes through. And it also functions to store the flood water. That's another function of the forest there. So I'm very interested in the floodway aspect and what agencies are looking at. Maybe you can answer that just simply now, what's going on there.
Okay, so let me just explain where the floodway is on this map. I should have done that earlier. I think you all have seen it in the drawings as well. So it's a little tough to see here, but these two blue lines here are floodplain lines, flood lines, 100-year, 500-year. This pink-purple line that kind of bisects the area here, that's the floodway that Aaron was referring to. I want to address one thing about the slopes of the soils. So the upland area, that has a slope to it, and then primarily above this line, above the floodway line, there is some slope there from the upland review area as it transitions into kind of that floodway area. And primarily that floodway area has a much more gradual slope than the remaining of this delineated area. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that point first. And then in terms of which agency is reviewing the flooding aspects of the work, so Connecticut Deep is reviewing the remediation portions of it. The US EPA is supporting Army Corps with respect to the restoration plan, but as part of that Army Corps application, we have to talk about not only the project itself, the excavation, the backfill, the restoration of plantings, but we have to talk about erosion issues, flooding issues. So they look at that. And we provided them very similar information that we provided to you in terms of flooding mitigation measures as well. So Army Corps looks at that during their review. And oftentimes, if you have a project that involves a development, let's say we were trying to build a building here, which obviously we're not, they would be interested in how that affects the floodplain. So they do get engaged in that process very carefully.
And one reason I ask is that we got a flood contingency plan, which frankly I haven't had time to open up. We got it last Thursday, but before that, it seems like nobody was looking at it or addressing it. Like the Army Corps hadn't stepped in and asked you to do anything before I asked you. That's what I'm confused. Why didn't they ask you to do this months ago?
That information was included with the Army Corps application. So we've provided it to the commission as well.
So the Army Corps is still reviewing this plan right now.
Okay, so when do you expect to get your different permits?
So in terms of permits and approvals, Army Corps, based on the time that we submitted that application and the time that they typically review and approve, and the amount of activity that we've had with Army Corps in terms of correspondence, they may provide us a response in September this month, or it may be sometime in October as well. That's what we anticipate at this point for Army Corps. And then the planning and zoning permit application process would follow this commission's process.
And when do you expect your DEP remediation permit?
So Connecticut DEEP does not issue a permit for the remediation. We submitted a remedial action plan. We also met with them earlier this year, and they've concurred with the remediation approach, and we're going through that public notice for that remedial action plan now. And once that public notice finishes, then we've met our obligations for that remedial action plan.
Do you know when that'll finish, your public notice period?
What's that?
When does the public notice period end?
I would have to get back to you on the exact date, but I believe that is in the first half of October.
And would the...
Actually, that might be early October, sorry.
Just curious, I know you said you wanted to get going in October or November on this project. I'm just curious, the nickel was laid down over 33 years ago. The property was sold 33 years ago. So what is the rush now?
Well, we have the project. It's been characterized to an appropriate extent, and as you might know, environmental remediation projects typically have a long time span associated with them in terms of investigation, regulatory reviews, ecological risk assessments. We went through that delineation process to further refine nickel. We have enough information right now to proceed with the project, so that's why we'd like to proceed with the project.
Why shouldn't we vote on this tonight, Aaron?
Well, I would like you to vote on it tonight as a significant impact activity, as I put in my report. So yes, I'm recommending you vote on that tonight.
All right, what's the significant activity of this?
If you look in your definition of significant activity, it meets all the criteria in the definition of significant activity. And if you voted that it was significant impact activity, then the commission would hold a public hearing on October 7th.
I understand it, but all I've heard them talk about is taking some fill out and putting some fill in. Why is this a significant activity? What significant activity is the impact to the wetlands?
You are drastically altering a wetland that's 2.2 acres in size. You're taking well, 2 feet of the dirt. You're taking the top layer of the dirt out. You're taking most of the plants out except for the big trees. You're moving a stormwater, you're bypassing the stormwater system, putting it somewhere else. You're putting riprap down for their temporary phase. Then you're going to put that back at the end of the project, take the riprap out, and so on. And then you're attempting to recreate a wetland. This is a laborious project, which will take hours and hours of not only the excavation and the replanting, but the monitoring of this site. Because right now, I'd like you to schedule a site walk out there. If you go out there, you're walking in shade. It's glades, it's dappled sun, and you're walking through fern glades and vines and such. Once they take a lot of this down, it opens up the area to sunlight. And then they're going to restore it, take the soil out, restore it, put it back, put new soil in there, plant it. But the area now is open up to sunlight. And of course that invites all the invasives that are blowing through the town, like Japanese knotweed and mugwort and all those invasives. It lays out a doormat to them. So this is going to involve very vigilant monitoring and, unfortunately, eradication, probably with chemicals. So this is a big impact to that 2.2 acres of wetland. Plus, I haven't even mentioned the flood end of it. When we walked out there, Tom and I, the acting town planner, and I walked out there with the team, with Lucas, we had to reroute ourselves because some areas were just too wet to go in, so we'd go around them and go up the slope and around. And that was in August 11th, where we were going through this severe drought in Connecticut. So the groundwater, my point is the groundwater is at the surface, and that was in August. And, it's black organic material up there, and the groundwater is at the surface. And I'm thinking, where's the groundwater in April or in, December? This is a very wet site. These seeps under the paved area of Amatec, there's seeps that come out and feed this slope. So they're going to be operating in groundwater, especially when they go down. If it's not at the surface, they're going to go down 2 feet. Then you got sloppy site. So it's arduous. They're going to go cell by cell by cell. It's got to be very carefully done so that you don't have a mess during the project. And then if we have a hurricane, or like the tornado that we had this last week, touchdown in Hamden and Bethany and such, and the microburst that went through the area 2 years ago, in May 2018. It's not out of the question that there would be some impact from storm activity during this excavation or in the fragile post-remediation project phase of it, where they've planted the plants back in there. So yes, it's a significant impact with the potential for significant erosion and transport of dirt downstream in Warden Brook.
A lot of that area was excavated along Tully's Road behind Essex. Was this 2.2 acres ever excavated?
I don't have any knowledge to that, but it doesn't look like it to me.
It does not? Or it does or does not?
Does not. May I provide some clarification to what Aaron discussed regarding the groundwater levels?
Yes.
Okay. So the soils report, which you probably have to take a look at still.
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
But page 3-1 of the soils report, there's a second figure up there which I can show you, and what we're showing is 36 different soil borings, shallow soil borings that we performed throughout that wetland, and the majority of those were performed last December, 32 of them last December, as part of that nickel delineation work. And Just a quick summary of that data, and that was December of last year. Within the 6-inch deep excavation area on the western side of the remediation area, groundwater was encountered at depths ranging from 6 inches to 2 feet. So if we're excavating to 6 inches, we shouldn't encounter groundwater based on that data. In 4 of the 9 locations, it was encountered at 6 inches, and it was primarily in that southwestern portion where I talked about the proximity to Wharton Brook. So it's kind of a limited portion of that overall 6-inch area. On the flip side, on the eastern side of the area, that other 6-inch area, groundwater was encountered at depths ranging from 1 to 2 feet. It was encountered at 1 foot at 3 of the 10 locations. And all this data is actually tabulated in this report too. In the 2-foot deep excavation area in the central portion, groundwater was encountered at depths ranging from 6 inches to 2 feet. It was encountered at 6 inches at 4 of 12 locations, and those were generally situated in the southern 1/3 of that 2-foot excavation area. So, to Aaron's point about shallow groundwater, we believe it's primarily in the southern 1/3 of that 2-foot excavation area, and also in that southwestern portion of the 6-inch excavation closest to Wharton Brook. Again, based on that data that we collected last December.
This is probably our largest application of activity in a wetland. Is it roughly 2.2 acres of wetland?
Correct.
I don't know if we've never had anything to this extent. It sounds like a simple project. You're going to take the fill out and you're going to put some more fill in. There certainly can be some issues that take place that some of them are under your control and some of them are not under your control. If a hurricane, tornado, microburst came in. But usually floodplains don't move. They're already absorbing the flood waters. I don't know, my experience has been they don't really erode out like a ravine, it's already been done 1,000,000 years ago. That's where they're in. Especially, I think a lot of that area, they used to call that the Great Beach, and they came up from the ocean. The sea waters were right up there. That was all that sand was the end of the run. The water was not far away. But I don't know. I think Aaron would like to see you at a public hearing on this application. Do you have any objection to that?
If that's what's required, I mean, we would just like to proceed with a remediation project that's required by Connecticut Deep, have the project proceed in a responsible fashion. That's why we prepared contingency plan, soils report, responded to comments, revised our plans. But I think it's up to...
Well, Aaron feels strongly the other way, that there's potential for a negative impact to the wetlands, and the habitat there is huge. Is that correct, Aaron?
In general, yes.
What?
Yes. The easy answer is yes.
So
There's a host of concerns, yeah.
there's host concerns, but how are you prepared to provide that host of concerns? I mean, if we go into a public hearing, it's going to be you against them, because it's your concerns that are going on there.
Okay, but I just want to say it's not me against them. Just in the review process, my first one is something like 32 comments
Yeah, but
that they responded to. The second one was something like 37 comments
well,
that they
the issue
responded
is,
to.
it's not us. Okay, all of our information is coming directly from you.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, that's why I say it's you against them. We're here absorbing all this, but as far as trying to digest the negativity of this remediation plan, it's difficult.
Yes, but I will say they answered a lot of questions. In other words, they were moved by my comments to provide a lot of information, some of which they hadn't thought of before maybe, or hadn't codified or cataloged before, and the project has grown in size, in response to some of these comments. And it is true. I mean, it's making me realize comments on the local level probably are very different from the comments you've been receiving from people in Boston. On the federal level,
Well,
it's
what are,
different.
what would
It's just
be-
different.
What would be our goal here? Because whatever we decide, they're still gonna mediate this 2.2 acres. So what's gonna be our goal as a commission here?
In answer to that question is manyfold, I'm thinking of many things. If it does go through, if it is going to be remediated, to remediate it in the best, safest way possible, with all the precautions and bells and whistles that we can think of to make it the best outcome possible. And that one thing is review. I mean, I came up with things that they hadn't thought of, okay? So it'll make it a better project. If it's going to go forth, it'll make it a better project. The biggest concern for me looking at this, and for other staff looking at this, is the floodway aspect of it. This town has never had a project like this in the floodway. I mean, you might build a bridge in the floodway, but something like this, never in the floodway. And frankly, we're looking for outside expertise on that, because in-house needs assistance with this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That this the 5 voting members here, isn't qualified to look at this plan and say, what does it need to improve? This is, look how long you've worked with it. You and I have talked for months on this. Now, is this something the applicant can deal with Wallingford staff and get resolved and get a blessing from Wallingford staff and then, or do we go to a public hearing, or do you want to hire a third-party review person?
Yes, I do want to, for the flood aspect, for the engineering flood aspect. Not for the whole thing. For that aspect, I think that would be of benefit. It would definitely aid staff.
And the flood aspect of the floodway?
Yeah, concerns, like how...
What are you going to, I'm just trying to get him. You're going to ask this third-party review to say, is this the best possible way to do this remediation in the floodway?
Looking at the floodway aspect, not looking at the turtles or the trees or, but looking at the erosion control as it relates to the river, looking at water handling along the river, looking at cofferdams, like our cofferdams in this particular place. How long should they stay in place? How will this affect the river downstream if it floods with these cofferdams in place?
Now, are you going to, if it's determined to have a public hearing on this, is this person going to have this information in preparation for 30 days from now?
It would have to. It would have to. Yeah.
He'll have to.
Yeah, that would be the point, yeah. I would like to see it presented in October, yes. I wouldn't want to have to wait till November, if that's what you mean. It'd be great if they could present it. We'd have to act fast. You'd have to act tonight, actually, to allow, to direct me as staff to get on board and get a proposal and see it through soon. So what I'd like to see is you declare it a significant impact activity tonight, to set a site walk as soon as possible, so you get a feel for the area. It helps tremendously to walk around and understand what we're talking about out there, and have the applicant, machete a path through the forest there. And the third thing would be to direct me to pursue an engineering proposal, a consultancy.
Well, based on staff comments, I'll ask the commission, would the commission like to make a motion regarding significance of this activity? The activity of the remediation of the soil. In fact, I don't know how you're going to clean around the trees and get all the nickel contaminated soil out. to me, if you're gonna leave those trees, you might as well leave all of it, or take all of it. I mean, I see you're gonna hand shovel around them, you're still not gonna shovel underneath them and shovel all the stuff that's around it. But anyway, commissioners, how do you feel about significant activity which drives into a public hearing?
Aaron, can we take his plan to DEP and have them review it and come back with comments about the floodway or the flood, address that certain issue you're concerned with?
That's a question I haven't gotten an answer to. DEP, I've been told that they're not going to look at it except for the remediation division. Is that your understanding, Lucas?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the different divisions of DEP, such as the habitat, the natural diversity folks, the wetland department, the department that deals with flooding, that they're not going to be looking at it. The water resources department, they're not going to be reviewing it. I don't really understand why they're not. Doesn't it usually make the rounds up in Hartford and everyone gets a crack at it?
Not typically, no. Not for a project like this.
And we have been in touch with those folks, and they have delegated their review to Army Corps.
Correct.
Although we have been through the Natural Diversity Database process and have included that information with the application.
Okay, so are we going to be privy to Army Corps' comments?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, they would be
Any-
public
any
record.
revisions, yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, would that be by October 7? Would I have that? Or no, you're not sure?
All we know is that it's currently under review.
Okay.
Commissioners, I'd like to just have you note on the letter from DEP dated, was received Town Hall at August 28th, directed to Aaron. In the text of the letter, the DEP states, let's see, how's the word? I advise inland wetland agencies that if a project is occurring as a result of a deep enforcement order, do not frustrate the permit process or cause undue delays. That's an interesting statement from DEP. Regards, signed Darcy. I wonder what they really mean by that.
Okay. Lucas, can I ask you, is the DEP going to require a bond on the project?
Not to our knowledge, no.
Well, is the Army Corps, is anybody requiring a bond on it?
Kyle, have you, when you've dealt with Army Corps, I've dealt with Army Corps in the past and they have not required a bond.
I haven't been in a circumstance where they've required one.
Yeah.
See, I'm just wondering, this isn't a violation, this is a remediation because of the liability factor that the nickel is there. Exactly how much nickel is left after 40 or 50 years of flooding and erosion and wash. Just how much, did you test for the nickel that's there?
We tested for the nickel that's there, yes.
So the 6 inches on the east and west and the 2 feet in the middle, that'll eliminate the nickel?
They will eliminate the nickel that is causing this ecological risk that's out there.
Right. So by psychological risk, you're talking about a liability.
It's a remediation requirement by Connecticut Deep that you eliminate that ecological risk.
Right. So you're the good guys because you're going to come in and clean up a mess that's there that needs to be attended to.
We're trying to do that, yes.
Right. Okay.
Well, do we want to call a public hearing on this, either for impact to wetlands or public concern?
I don't see where we're going to gain anything by public hearing, because usually public hearing is to gather information surrounding the area itself. I mean, unless we can find some 90-year-old people in town that want to come and speak in behalf of, they have history there. I don't know, Jim.
Aaron? Ally, how do you feel about it?
I don't think that I don't know what we could gain from a public hearing, because the public that we would be inviting to this is probably a lot more in the dark than even we are.
Yeah, that's a good term.
So it would,
Debbie?
Somebody isn't gonna come and say, leave the nickel.
I can see tabling it and waiting for Army Corps of Engineers comments.
Well, if we instruct Aaron to get a third-party review, I think that will probably benefit us as much as the Army Corps.
Yes, definitely.
Robert?
In my opinion, if it's required, then we have to do it. If it's not required, then we won't do it. So, is it required? Yes or no? That's the way I look at it.
So the public hearing is not driving you to a decision here?
Okay.
I mean, is it or not? I'm asking.
The more input you get, the better off you're informed.
But
So that's the way I look at it.
Right. I totally agree, and I think we may get that through the third-party review,
Okay.
because I don't think we have all the knowledge necessary to ask the questions to run a good public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, you have the DEP and you have the Army Corps of Engineers. Those are the ones that have all the knowledge.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I don't see the point in doing the public hearing. I don't know what we're gonna be gaining from it. And this jumped off the page, the same as it jumped off the page for you about not to frustrate the permitting process or cause undue delays. I mean,
I'm not against the public hearing, but I think we can accomplish the same thing through the third-party review, Aaron.
Jim, where are you gonna find a third-party review that's gonna put his reputation online for something there's a lot of unquestionables about that could happen out there? I don't know if, there's just too many loose ends. Like you said,
We have a name, Aaron does have a name.
of a
She
third,
hasn't talked to the third-party review yet that I know of.
I have one, yeah,
Yeah.
I have one who said they do this all the time and they're willing to take it on.
what, the review of the flooding?
They review remediation projects frequently, and they're also known throughout Connecticut for flood control projects, and they are willing and able to take this on quickly.
Well, I think we table this till next month. But the commission, are they in favor of getting Aaron with a third-party review?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That's a yes vote from the commission. But he's got to have a report by October 7th.
Okay,
All right?
And he's gonna be able to answer the questions that you're concerned with.
and if they can't, then I'll say, forget it, that's okay, we have to move on this. So-
We can't really hold them up. Now, they should be in your office every day discussing your 37 questions to resolve any questions that you have with them.
Well, thank you. There's a limit to my expertise. I'm good with the turtles and the plants, but
But you gave the questions.
the flood engineering, I'm not so good with that.
Well, your 37 questions are gonna be answered in writing, right, so that we can review them?
It went out in your packet, it came in last Thursday and went out in the packet Monday night.
Okay.
Well, you got two packets, you got the Friday night and the Monday night. So it's in one of those, that white bag.
You answered their
Yeah.
30.
Yep, we answered all questions.
No white bag.
We updated all drawings with the additional detail that Ms. O'Hare requested, and we also provided the soils report and a contingency plan as well. Those were attachments to the set of comments and the responses.
Have you done a similar project as this? And if so, do you have any pictures of it, any documentation of how it went, any issues, any comments from the municipality you might have been working in?
We have done similar projects to this.
Why don't you get some of that information together?
Sure, and I think some of that information is within those responses to comments.
Yeah, we described those projects in the response to comments, but if it would help the commission, we can provide some additional information on those.
Well, this is all new to us too. Aaron's concerned, if it wasn't for Aaron, we probably wouldn't know what you were talking about. But she's led us down the road this far on this the concerns of this project. And it sounds to me the bulk of the problems is if there's a major issue that comes along. So I don't know how you hedge against that. Okay?
So
See you.
do you want to set a sidewalk or not this month?
I think if we're gonna do a sidewalk, it should be this month. Do a sidewalk?
I'm always into sidewalks, I think they're fun.
23rd is out for me. I don't think there's any other date that's a problem. You got another date? What day of the week do we want, gang?
And for me, any day, it's fine.
What's that?
I'm free every day, it's fine.
All right, do we want Fridays? Do we want Wednesdays? Anybody care? No. Okay, Wednesday the 16th?
Early-ish on the 16th?
What do you think earliest?
I have an appointment at 7.
Well, how long is it gonna take? 2 hours, 5? We go 5?
We can go 5 or 5:30, I bet we'd have plenty of time. It's dark.
Because where are we going on this, Aaron? We're just gonna look at water's edge or the humps and bumps on the site? What are you gonna take us on the site investigation?
Well,
What are we gonna focus on?
standing there, get the feel of it, see how wet it is, look at the river.
Yeah, but we know we're in a wetland, we know we got a river or brook taking us to it. It doesn't run into the Quinnipiac, or is this site border the Quinnipiac? No.
Oh, no.
So you have this brook behind there.
It's a floodplain forest, which is a particular habitat with particular soils. It's not what we usually work on here, you know.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at the habitat?
You're looking at the lay of the land, how wet it is, the growth there, the lush growth.
Well, we're not gonna march all over it, because it's gonna be the same on the whole 2 acres, right?
Well, it gets wetter as you go down the slope, but yeah.
Let's go for the 16th, 5 o'clock. You'll send out a notice where to meet, Ametek lot, I'm sure, somewhere in an Ametek lot.
I'm sorry?
You're gonna set us a notice where to meet at 5 o'clock on the 16th?
Well, it's a secure site, so
Right, I was just kind of thinking about that. So they have a fence site, there's a security gate that we would have to go through. Someone would have to guide us down to the entrance to the wetland, and then we would proceed from there.
Well, is there
Isn't there a
room to
parking lot
store-
right in front, though? There's a,
Yes, there's a
you
parking
pull
lot.
in, there's a parking lot, and then there's a gate.
Yes, yep, there's a,
All right, so we're
there's-
gonna meet in the parking lot in front of the gate.
correct.
Okay.
Is,
All right.
is 5 o'clock the best time for the commission?
5 o'clock?
Is that the best time for the commission?
It seems to be. Does that work for you?
No problems on my end. I just want to check with Ametek in terms of, because I think they work until 5, but if this is what the commission is requiring.
Well, you got a bunch of people that still go to work every day.
Exactly, right, yep,
All right?
okay.
do we want to pick a rain date?
We don't want to get down too far. Let's try for that Friday, right behind.
I'll be out of town you can always do it without me, but I'll be out of town that weekend.
Well, when do you want to do it? You can't do it. I can't do it the next one. Do you want to do it Thursday? The rain date, or
We
do
could
you
do
want to go to the
we could
beginning
do
of
the
the
rain
week?
date the next day, yeah.
Try the next day.
Okay, 5 o'clock, and it's a special meeting. I'll send a notice, special meeting notice.
Okay, very good. I thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm all messed up here. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to deal over in some violations now. The violation of Okay, South 9, number 2 on the violation list, which is 950 South Colony Road. Doesn't matter. We're all set.
Yes.
Anytime.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us tonight. I'm Norman Fishbein, attorney, 100 South Main Street, representing the car wash facility. Next to me on my left is Naresh Kamal, who I believe you know is the owner of the facility, and next to him is the engineer, who has come to present the bulk of our presentation tonight. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to him for your attention. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I'm David Carson, one of the principals of the OCC group, and I'm going to work from the presentation board. I'd like to start by clarifying a couple of issues, or a couple of items that came up at last month's meeting, where we did not have the benefit of presentation boards. Is it on? I'm sorry. A big part of the discussion was where is the access way easement across this particular property? And the access way easement encompasses that, or did encompass that entire area in red, from the curb line of the existing car wash all the way to the easterly property line. The applicant and his attorney have been successful in getting that easement released, so it no longer exists. The second issue or item that was discussed a little bit was with regard to a roadway. There is no roadway across this property. There never was a roadway across the property. And in fact, this area in question is not accessible from either the property to the north or the south. The property to the north has concrete landscape material bins running all the way to the top of slope. As you proceed southerly, there's a gigantic 36-inch oak tree right in the middle of this plateau area. And from there to the southerly property line, there are more smaller trees other than the larger ones that we actually field located on this plan. With regard to the plateau area that's at the top of the slope, I did a little research and I went all the way back to the existing conditions survey plan that we did for this property prior to the car wash being built. Back then, there were 2 houses on the property. There was originally a massive garage structure in this location and a fenced-in lawn area out to this point. The green line represents the 50-foot wetland buffer, which of course has not changed from 2006 to today. What's really significant on this plan is the top of the slope. The top of the slope was approximately, at the closest point here, was like 17 feet, this corner 20 feet, and of course as you go further north or south, it gets wider. But there basically was a 20-foot level plateau area before you reach the top slope from behind the former garage that was in that location. This is the site grading plan for the car wash that was approved in 2006. Again, the green line represents the 50-foot buffer. You can see the slope, top of the slope, is still in the same location. Basically, with this plan, there was no disturbance past the back of the existing garage. The curb line on the car wash, as it existed in 2006, exists today, is in the same relationship as the garage was at that time. There was no disturbance in the 50-foot buffer, and the only actual disturbance in the buffer was the riprap outlet swale from the underground stormwater detention system. That brings us to today. Car wash, slope, the black rock area represents the limits of the illegally placed rock fill. The lightly shaded brown area represents gravel that actually extended the plateau a little bit. So there is a sliver. This dark line represents the top of the embankment that has existed back since our original survey. There is a little bit of gravel here before you actually get to the rock. This rock limit is, quite honestly, of course, we sent a surveyor out there to survey it. He was a little generous in getting the limits because it's all the way out. If you were to envision getting a load of topsoil from a six-wheeler, dumping topsoil or stone or everything, it all comes out in a cone and spreads out like that. Rock spreads out even further. So the material that was dumped in here obviously was dumped in the center. It rolled down the hill and spread out. Around the perimeter here, realize it's zero. There's no fill. Just inside the perimeter, 6 inches of fill, a foot of fill. The only place there's significant fill is right in the center. As part of our proposed mitigation plan, we had proposed excavating around the trunks of the two larger trees at the top of the hill. That's where the greatest volume of material is. Those have been hand dug around. I will make the comment that I think they could be cleaned up and dug around a little more nicely. It's just been dug out by a shovel. If it were me, I would actually clean it up a little bit, take some of the rock itself and actually kind of make a bowl around those trees. But these trunks have been exposed. These trees that are down here basically are much smaller trees close to the perimeter of the rock fill. These trees down the bottom have like 6 inches, at most a foot of material of stone around them. They're on the outside edge of the fill. We also, in our revised plan, we are proposing to install a 6-foot-high wooden fence as opposed to shrubs and timber guide rail, which we had originally proposed, running right in line with the 36-inch oak, 80 feet to the north and 40 feet to the south, which would hopefully eliminate any future dumping of illegal dumping of household waste and stuff down the hill. Just a side comment, when I did go back and research our original survey, and I'd forgotten about that, and it brought back some memory of this site. this area to me, way back then, appeared that it had been partially excavated many, many years ago. There was stuff dumped into this area. It actually looked like an old dump site. And as part of the car wash application plan, we did clean material out of this area. Of course, as you well know, it has continued. But this area was always open. It was right behind the garage that was there. And I think historically it might have been a little bit of an old dump site just for, you know, this property itself. But that's just a side note. With regard to other things that were brought up, specifically a comment that Commissioner Kern had made at our last meeting with regard to the rock fill around trees. I don't intend to be an arborist or a tree expert, and I do have 30 years of personal experience on landscape projects on my own property of filling with rock around tree trunks. What the rock does is actually give the trunk aeration. It's not water that it needs, because the water is to the root system out at the drip line. But the trunk actually needs some aeration, and the rock opens it up enough so that the trunk itself is not being choked. I've never had a tree die because of rock fill around it. I did notice at these excavations, the hand-dug excavation around these two upper trees, that definitely should have been done, because what is obvious from that excavation is there's more gravel up here at the top of the slope, whereas the entire slope itself is like 3 to 6 inch rock just running down the hill. So the excavation around this particular tree is definitely a plus, and I would say if the fill was to be left in place, this should be cleaned up a little bit. I will note that this other tree that has been hand dug around, personally, I believe should be cut down. It is being strangled by vines. It is half dead, and I only make note of it so that if this were to be left in place, nobody would be surprised in 5 years from now if that particular tree died, because it is totally strangled with vines over the past probably 10 years. Other than that, the fill, to sort of come to a conclusion on this, the rock fill, there is no fill within the wetlands. This area is totally stable. There is no evidence of any adverse impact on either the trees, which are all leafed out, or the wetlands. And basically we come back to recognizing the fact that the fill was placed illegally. We come back to our original opinion that mechanical excavation of this fill would definitely cause tremendously more environmental impact than leaving the fill in place. We don't believe there really is any environmental impact by leaving it in place. Excavating it is just begging for erosion, siltation, these trees getting nicked by a bucket, and that's when a tree does die. On a construction site, what are the trees that die? You know, if the homeowner has his tree die 2 years after he moved into the house, it's the one that the bark got nicked off by a bucket or a loader or something during construction. So as I say, we do recognize that this certainly should have never been done. there was no reason to do it. And that's the crazy part about it. This serves no benefit to this plan. And a side note is over a year ago, I had forwarded to me a proposal, a reuse proposal for this site by an architect, and I reviewed it, and there would be no change to the pavement or drainage system if it were to be an adaptive reuse other than the car wash. So, you know, I don't know why it was done, shouldn't have been done, but taking the fill out does not do anything, in my opinion, other than create the probability of some sort of erosion, sediment, additional environmental problems. Happy to answer any questions.
Dave, where we left it last time, where was it? Did we say we wanted you to excavate the fill out of there? I don't
No,
believe-
what had happened is we had gotten to, as I recall, we had gotten to the point that the commission was about to make a motion. It was decided, let's kind of take a straw vote of the commission members present as to what your thinking was at the time. Excavate it, not excavate it. You seemed to agree with me that excavating it would certainly cause more problems than leaving it in place. But the straw vote of the entire commission seemed to be that no other members felt it should come out. I really felt that there was a degree of misunderstanding, again, because I said, you know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. It was, where is this easement? Is there a road? Is there not a road? You know, what was filled, you know, above the top of the embankment? I think there were some misconstrued images of what was actually there.
And my understanding at the last meeting was that Chairman Vitale and maybe somebody else was concerned about the extent of the right-of-way and wanted more information about that. And that was something that the commission wanted to consider as well. I was not notified that there was any formal decision made by the commission at that time. So my understanding was that it was continued to tonight to get that additional information.
Okay.
So I think one of the key differences is the fact that this access way easement has been extinguished. So.
Debbie? Comments?
No, no comment.
Robert?
No comment.
Jennifer?
I don't have anything.
Aaron?
The commission has my environmental reports for the last, I wrote 3 of these on this project. It didn't go out this weekend, don't look at it didn't go out in the last 2 packs. It went out, I guess, June, July, whatever. I've made my position clear in those in those previous environmental planner reports. I would like to see the violation fill taken out. There's no reason why it's there. If they had walked in before this happened and said, please, could we fill this slope, cut down whatever, 6 trees and fill the slope. Please, 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 could we do that? And of course, half the fill is in the 100-year floodplain. Please let us do this. I would say no. I would deny the application, or I would say, please don't apply for it. They'll never let you do it. And that's my position. I've made it clear, and I think the commission, I would hope you vote to have all this fill taken out. And that's my position.
And I would just reiterate what our expert has said, that taking it out may make it unstable. And then where are you? So I understand it was wrong to do. I understand it should not have been done. But sometimes correcting something, if it's not going to be better, is worse than it was before, and that's the opinion of our experts. So that's our position.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add something else. Maybe you know something I don't know. we're allowed to fill floodplains. Planning and zoning's not gonna make you take this material out. Nobody can fill a floodplain. Nobody can fill floodplains unless they provide compensatory flood storage. So you guys are operating under the assumption that you're special and you can fill a floodplain? No one's gonna make you take it out?
I didn't say that. People come before this commission all the time who have done things that are wrong, and sometimes they have to correct them. The floodplain is a different commission, which would be planning and zoning. I'm not saying that it was done and should have been done. I'm saying, yeah, it's been done now, but if it's ordered to be removed, is it going to be more detrimental than what is there now? That's the position our expert.
I'm sorry, I wasn't being articulate enough.
Okay.
The floodplain filling comes out. So why argue to leave it in when it's gonna come out? Half of it's gonna come out. The lower half is going to come out. To meet the regulations in 2020, that's what happens. So why are we arguing about the upper half when the lower half has to come out? I'm confused.
I'm just saying the floodplain is a decision that's made by planning and zoning.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. So we had been advised, to my understanding, by the town attorney to come to your commission first before planning and zoning with regard to that issue. We did do an analysis of the floodplain. We're talking about 50 cubic yards of material that's actually in the floodplain. Our analysis showed that there was zero impact by that fill. This is a massive floodplain cross-section. I'm not sure that this actually made it to this commission because it was really done for planning and zoning, but I'd like to make it part of the record.
And that information you indicated was from the town attorney. Actually, it was from me speaking with the planning and zoning office. So there was no communication from town attorney. It was from the planning and zoning office who said we had to come to you first.
Well, you all agree, everyone agrees it doesn't belong there. Should never have gotten there. Should never have gotten there. The issue is taking it out. Will it do more damage to the trees, the bank, the slope, and everything? You believe 50 yards went into the floodplain? Or the whole bank? That's just the floodplain?
Yes. There's 170 yards total, cubic yards total. 50 cubic yards is in the floodplain. Our analysis shows that zero impact from their 50 yards. Just by sake of comparison, so the flood elevation has just recently been revised a year or so ago for that area. The flood elevation actually has been lowered, which is common throughout Connecticut in doing more analysis. The lowering of the floodplain elevation in that area, just on this one property, eliminated over 6,000 cubic yards of storage. We're talking about 50 yards here. It's like a pebble in a pond of what we're talking about here. So my understanding is that it would make no point for the planning department to make a determination on the floodplain aspects of this if in fact your commission told us we had to take it out. Well, then there would be no application to planning and zoning. So the only way we would proceed with planning and zoning with regard to this 50 cubic yards would be if this commission in your jurisdiction decided that leaving it in would be more environmentally sound than removing it.
Wouldn't that make you in zoning non-compliance? You get a zoning violation actually you do have a zoning violation. A zoning violation was issued to this property by the planning department.
And we have a wetlands violation. We're doing them in the order necessary.
Okay. hang on. Do we know who dumped this in here and why it was dumped in here?
I'd have to defer to the property owner.
I think
Microphone.
the person next door, they did.
No, microphone.
The person next door, the concrete guys, they are True Blue,
The guy with the,
their guy did it.
Which side are we talking about? The north side or the south side?
Everything.
No, which side is the person next door? The north side?
North.
It's on the south side.
No, north.
No, north side, north side.
So the north side neighbor he's talking about.
Because they have a property in,
And he came in and dumped it from your parking lot.
right, I think they tried to make a path over there, but because it was in the zoning.
But you already said there's
Then
no
they
access
stopped,
from
and they
that
stopped
side.
it when I was
There's,
away.
there's a retaining wall. There's no access from that side, so he couldn't.
It's all knocked down.
Now there is. There is a barrier there of some.
These barriers obviously could have been temporarily removed to come in. I have no idea.
And
but they could have come in from a different direction and dumped it there.
Yeah,
they could have, but the right of way that is in question across the back there has now been released by the owner of that property. So
Yeah, but
there's no legal right they
I
would
don't-
have to come
no,
on.
I agree with you, no legal right, so it does, regardless of the right of way, that got brought out in conversation, but I don't know if it was really necessary, because if this gentleman next door dumped it there to just get rid of it, he didn't care about a right of way. He already had a roadway to go. This fill that he dumped there doesn't gain him a path at all.
just for more edification on this whole scenario. I do know that before or back when the adjacent property owner, the Landscape Materials, I do not know the name of the operation, but when they leased that property, they had hopes of someday connecting from that property to another property that they own on the side street there.
Northfield Road.
Yes, okay? So, the only reason why I know about this is because I had a meeting with them, basically telling them that's not gonna happen, that you're not gonna be able to get a permit to do that. This
If this fill has.
this is many years ago.
If this fill has to come out, who's gonna take it out? The neighbor who put it in there?
Sure.
It probably becomes a legal issue, but I would guess so.
I guess we'd have to bring an action against the neighbor.
Because the neighbor has the equipment to do it. I mean, that's one advantage to this thing. I don't know, it doesn't belong there. It's gonna hopefully not do a lot of harm if it's taken out, less harm if it stays there. I don't know, we're going around and around.
I just see machines going up and down that hill, taking stuff out, maybe creating more of a problem.
What elevation is that? What do we got? Are these 2-foot lines? 50, 10? Well, you got 10, 15 feet. A good backhoe could reach that, right? Not well. Not on that angle.
Jim,
You can swing the bucket out, that's for sure.
You have at least 20 feet in elevation, top to bottom. 20 to 22 feet.
I just
You're
don't,
gonna start to take out 20 feet. You need to get down below. You get down below, you're gonna be in the wetland, in the brook, everything else.
we have the same scenario right across the street we just got through in the last application. Aaron's concerned about the floodplain with the soils. I personally think that if you go in there and pull that material out, and I'm not saying it's okay that it's there, but you're gonna do more harm, because the first time we get some heavy rains, there's no stability there. All that sand is gonna run right down into your floodplain area and level it off anyhow. So it's a catch-22 here.
You know what this is gonna cost? This is gonna cost fines. This is where the reason for the commission to start fining people for these things. This is where we've stayed away from it. We've tried to be, good people. And things like this drive us the other way. Anyway, I want to go home tonight sometime, so.
I think we all do.
Yeah, but when you're done, you can go. I still got an agenda. Anyhow, I'll entertain a motion to this application. A motion, it can consist of more digging around the trees, it consists of removing the fill, it can consist of leaving the fill there but dig more around the trees. It can do whatever the person making the motion feels like saying, because there's too many moving targets.
Let me just say, it's not an application.
What's that?
They didn't apply for anything.
Well, I need an application, I need a vote here to tell them what to do,
Yes, but just, it's a remediation of a violation.
all right?
They haven't made application
Motion
yet,
for
yes.
remediation of a violation.
Do we want just
Would
digging
somebody
around the
like to make a
tree?
motion?
Do we just want to have digging around the trees?
You make the motion and see how it goes. If it's dig around the trees, if it's remove fill, it's remove all of it. It may take 2 or 3 motions to get it done. Don't know yet.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the notice of violation, 950 South Colony Road, the car wash facility, the unpermitted filling, to have some remediation involved, which would involve more digging around the roots of the trees so that they are more exposed, and to remove the fill in the wetlands, the floodplain.
Okay, there's a motion to remove all. See, ironically, okay, motion made to remove the fill in the floodplain area and dig around the trees. Is there a second? No second.
Robert usually seconds.
What's that?
I said Robert usually
You want to
seconds.
second it?
Oh, I didn't hear.
I want to second that motion.
Second the motion. Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? The discussion I see is the fill that's got to come out of the wetland is the 20-foot down bottom. It's the bottom, it's not the top. You're going to excavate to the bottom, you're going to have a real project on your hand, a real tough one. So, motion made and seconded. I'll call for a vote. Ally?
No.
Nick?
No.
Debbie?
No.
No.
Robert?
No.
Okay, no. So, all right. What's our, another note? Let's try another motion then.
All right. Let me just see.
You want to try a motion, Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to try it.
Nick's going to try a motion.
And the only reason, all right, let me, as I do this, okay. I make a motion that violation remediation, 950 South County Road, car wash facility, be remediated by taking more material around the trees away, leaving the fill on the bank in its present state not to be disturbed, and the fence to be put up as the applicant had volunteered, and then some wetland plaques along the bank, top of the bank, for identification purposes in the future. Wetland flags to be in place for future notification of the area for future development. And my reasoning for this is because we start pulling that stuff out, we're going to have a complete mess. That sandy soil just has no bond to it. It runs everywhere.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion?
I have a comment. I just want to say, I am not at all certain that it's legal to allow fill in the floodplain. I'm not sure it's even legal.
Well, then, planning and zoning can determine
Right,
that.
but it just,
Do you understand the harm that that's gonna have, Aaron?
No, I understand, Nick, I get it.
What's the remedy then?
I get it, and
You're,
you know, I think other people should also fill their floodplains too,
well, thank you, I think I'll do it.
because why not? Why not fill the floodplain?
It wasn't done intentionally, I don't believe. I believe it was done over a period of time. And they figured the brook is 100 feet away down below. It's not going to cause any harm to fill the bank. I don't know what the circumstances are. I just know the harm is going to cause when we start pulling that stuff out.
If it wasn't a bank, I would vote to take it out. If it wasn't a bank. The fact that you got the slope bank, you got a 20-foot drop, I think I share Nick's feeling on how dangerous, or how
Harmful it's going to be.
Okay, motion made and seconded, call for a vote. Ally?
I'll vote yes, but I'm gonna say that we've made people jump through far worse hoops and gone through a lot more for most people who have made violations. You're getting off easy if this passes.
Yes.
Yes.
Robert?
No.
I'll vote yes. Yes. Ally, I would agree with you, and, but if we can go around and we see sites that have been filled and less filled. So
Oh, I understand.
it works
I
both
understand
ways.
exactly why we're doing this.
But there's some people out there that have filled and I don't want to say got away with it, but we gave it an after-the-fact fill permit. So
I don't take into consideration the cost of the remediation. I take into consideration the damage it's going to do
Damage
to the
to do.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank
The
you
two
all.
wrongs don't make
Thank
a
you.
right.
okay,
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay.
all right, let's see what we're doing here. Okay, now let's see if we clean up our agenda.
Could you receive the applications? The new
Well,
applications?
I think we got more than that, Aaron. All right, if we go back to, okay, Wooding Road we took care of. That was a connection, right? That. All right, hang on just a minute. Okay, notice of violation, Grebe Trail, we took care of that. Nothing's going on with Northfield Road, 820 2.1.
Well, no, stuff is going on, yes. I mean, I didn't get any clear correction advice from the commission, so he's just proceeding with his permit. He put in a silt fence.
Okay.
But I will make a note here, which something came up on this week I'm not pleased with. I go to tell the building department that, yeah, I'll sign off on the demolition permit. He put in a good silt fence. And I find out that he can't get his demolition permit because lo and behold, there's a septic system in there that needs to come out as part of the demolition. And lo and behold, he has to connect to the town sanitary sewer. And lo and behold, the old septic system wasn't put on that plan that everybody saw and everybody approved. And
That's an issue.
and so root shock, and he's got to deal with that now. Has this.
Okay. All right, 1103 Old Colony Road.
No movement, that's waiting to do, the law department's gonna do something with the court on that.
And 1245 Old Colony in Quinnipiac River.
No movement, they're waiting for planning and zoning to get their act together on that. We had transition, now we're with an acting town planner.
All right, now, this 1152 Durham Road, William Monaco.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was,
the.
you said, didn't you say 1103?
Well, there's both. There's 1103, there's 1152 Durham Road, 1103 Old Colony Road.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry, yes, 1152 Durham Road, I'm sorry, yes. that is going along well. He's cooperating. He put in all sorts of erosion controls. He did want to plant grass, but nature planted weeds instead. So now the whole place is has the erosion control of the weeds, and that's where it sits. He doesn't want to build anything. He doesn't want to do anything. He's just awaiting, you know, what's next.
All right, so now we go to new applications. A 27.5, 403 North Elm Street, Charles Sharp. This, I talked to Aaron on this, and he took out an above-ground pool, and he's just trying to clean up his backyard, make it level where the pool was, and plant grass. Is that correct?
Yeah, and take down, also there's a small shed. He's adding a small shed and taking down a tree.
Okay, so there's no problem with granting him administration approval?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one, A 27.6, 9 Harrison Road, Christopher Cerrito, in-ground pool, patio and fence installation. This, he straightened out a property. He was mowing over his property line. With Aaron's help, they got a property line, they got a fence going in, they got it straightened out. Also, it can be, you're satisfied with a request
Yes.
for administration approval. Okay. 827.7, 79 Kendracky Lane, an after-the-fact stream and bank disturbance. We have that application here, so that'll be next month.
Yes.
Okay, A 8.1, 23 Country Way, Patricia Della Pia, after-the-fact wetland tree removal. Was approved administratively on 8/7, seems to be okay. And 827,
Oh, that's a typo. Sorry about that.
8.2.
Yes,
8.2, 1193 David Chester, a shed.
I handed that out tonight.
We have that application too.
I haven't been out there. I have to go out there.
All right, anything else?
Well, the fines.
The fines, yes. She gave us a guide. I don't know who she made reference to. I don't know if it's Cheshire or what it was. I couldn't quite figure that one out. But it's something to review about fines. Yeah, who's CGS?
Oh, Connecticut General Statutes.
General statute allows IWW fines up to $1,000. What's $1,000? Total fine per
Well,
day? Total?
that's something the law department has to figure out.
Oh, jeez. All right. So the issue becomes, as you can see, as much as I'm not in favor of it, I think it's unfortunately the fact of life when you have applications like this in front of us. So we can start looking at them and see what comes, and if we have a quiet month, we can get into it. Okay, if there's nothing else to come before us tonight, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?